If you feel behind in life, you are not broken and you are not too late. The problem is that you are comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. And most people never tell you how long success actually takes or how messy it looks at the start. Some of the most successful people in the world were broke, rejected, and laughed at well past the age most people think success should happen. This video will completely change how you see time, progress, and your own path. By the end, you'll stop rushing, stop panicking, and start moving forward with confidence again. If you've been here before, drop a hashtag Believe in the comments below so I can feature you here in a future video. And if you're new, welcome to Believe Nation, the only channel that helps you believe in yourself daily, one video at a time. Believe. At 65 years old, Colonel Sanders had nothing. He'd lost his restaurant, was living off a tiny social security check, and felt like a failure. Most people would have given up, but not him. He hit the road with a pressure cooker and a secret fried chicken recipe. He knocked on doors, pitching his chicken to restaurant owners. 1,009 times they said no. 1,009 rejections. Would you keep going? Finally, someone said yes. That single yes grew into Kentucky Fried Chicken. And at an age when most people retire, Sanders built a global empire. Today, KFC has over 25,000 restaurants worldwide. Why? Because Colonel Sanders believed it's never too late to start again. Your dreams don't have an expiration date. If Colonel Sanders could build an empire at 65, what's stopping you? From setback to success at 65. So picture this, a 65-year-old man, broke and seemingly beaten by life, driving around with a pressure cooker and a secret fried chicken recipe. He's living on a $105 monthly Social Security check and sleeping in the back of his car. Now, most people at his age would have retired or just given up, but Colonel Harlan Sanders was not most people. In his mid-60s, an age when many slow down, Sanders was hitting the road, knocking on doors and pitching his fried chicken to any restaurant owner who would listen. He racked up rejection after rejection, according to the legend, over 1,000 no's before a single yes. Yet that one yes changed the course of fast food history, turning Sanders' dream into the global empire we know as Kentucky Fried Chicken. So in this video, I'm going to explore the incredible true story of Colonel Sanders, a story of perseverance and passion and persistence. You'll see how a man who faced countless failures and setbacks never gave up, how he built an intentional brand at an age when others would have thought it was too late. It's a journey that proves never too old, never too late isn't just a saying. Sanders lived it. So let's dive into the legendary life of Colonel Sanders and discover how he went from a string of odd jobs and failures to the face of a fried chicken empire. Early struggles and many hats worn. Colonel Sanders wasn't born a colonel. In fact, he wasn't even born in Kentucky. Harlan David Sanders entered the world in 1890 on a farm in Indianapolis. Life didn't wait to throw challenges at him. When Harlan was just 5 years old, his father died, forcing his mother to work and leaving young Harlan to cook and care for his younger siblings. By age 12, he had dropped out of 7th grade, finding algebra unbearable, and soon he was out in the world on his own. Now, over the next few decades, Sanders would work one job after another in a struggle to find his calling. Harlan Sanders wore many hats in his youth. He was a farmhand, a streetcar conductor, a railroad fireman, an army private stationed in Cuba, a blacksmith helper, an insurance salesman, even a would-be lawyer for a short stint. It seemed that he tried everything. Some jobs he lost. He was fired from more than a few for fighting or insubordination. Other ventures he started failed, and some he quit in search of something better. In his 20s, Sanders started a ferry boat company that actually succeeded, only to see his next business, a lamp manufacturing venture, fail due to a new electric competitor. In his early 40s, Harlan Sanders had lived the life of hard knocks and hard work with very little to show for it. As one biographer put it, he encountered repeated failure due to a mix of stubbornness and plain bad luck. But along the way, there was one thing that he could do really well: cook. Finding a calling in fried chicken. In 1930, at age 40, Harlan Sanders opened a service station in Corbin, Kentucky, where he also started serving food to travelers: fried chicken, steaks, country ham, classic Southern cooking. He had no formal training as a chef,
but years of feeding his family and working in cafes had taught him a thing or two about cooking delicious meals. His food became popular with road travelers, and soon Sanders opened a small restaurant he called Sanders Court and Cafe next to his gas station. His wife Josephine and children helped out, and the business grew. In the mid-1930s, Harlan's cooking gained such a reputation that the governor of Kentucky awarded him the honorary title of Kentucky Colonel for his contributions to state cuisine. Harlan embraced the title fully, later dressing in a crisp white suit, growing a goatee, and adopting the persona of the Colonel. Sanders was obsessed with making the perfect fried chicken. He knew that customers loved home-style fried chicken, but it typically took nearly half an hour to prepare in an iron skillet, too slow for a roadside cafe. So in 1939, he found a solution by using a pressure cooker. It was a new invention at the time, to fry chicken quickly under pressure. By 1940, at age 50, Harlan Sanders had perfected the now famous secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices and the method of pressure frying chicken to golden, crispy perfection. This was the origin of what he proudly called Kentucky Fried Chicken. Little did he know this recipe would eventually become a worldwide sensation, but not just yet. Throughout the 1940s, Sanders' restaurant and motel, the Sanders Court, expanded to offer lodging to, became a popular stop in Corbin. It was even featured in travel guides as a must-stop eatery for travels in the region. Everything seemed to be on track. The Colonel had finally found his niche after so many years. However, just as his local fame grew, fate threw another curveball at Harlan Sanders. Setback at the crossroads. By the early 1950s, change was coming to America's highways. A new interstate highway, Interstate 75, was planned that would bypass Corbin, Kentucky, diverting traffic away from Sanders' restaurant. This was a devastating blow. The lifeblood of his business was the travelers passing through. In 1955, at the age of 65, Colonel Sanders saw his restaurant business collapse as traffic dried up. He auctioned off his motel and cafe at a loss, paying off his debts and essentially starting over from scratch at a point in life where most people are settling into retirement. Imagine the situation. Sanders was 65 years old. With his business gone and little money in the bank, all he had left was his confidence in his fried chicken recipe and a meager Social Security check of $105 a month. That's about $1,200 in today's dollars. It would have been easy for him to feel hopeless. One popular but false legend even claims Sanders was so despondent he contemplated suicide, though in reality he did not sink into despair. Instead, the ever-feisty Colonel asked himself a simple question. What could he do next? The answer he came up with would change the fast food industry forever. Sanders knew he had one asset of real value, that secret chicken recipe and cooking method. He had spent years perfecting it and knew people loved the result. It was a problem of what to do next. Sanders later said, why not sell the recipe itself? He could franchise the concept to other restaurants, earning the commission on each piece of chicken they sold. It was a bold and unconventional idea at the time. Franchising was not yet common in the restaurant industry, but Colonel Sanders was convinced it could work. So at an age when most of his contemporaries were fully retired, Harlan set out on the road to begin the second act of his life. Hitting the road, 1,009 rejections, and one big break. In 1955, the 65-year-old Colonel took his pressure cooker, a sash of spice mix, and hit the highway in his car. His plan was simple, if not easy. Go door to door to restaurants, cook them his fried chicken on the spot, and propose a partnership. The deal he offered was a handshake agreement. The restaurant would use his recipe and his method, and in return give him a few cents per chicken sold, initially a nickel a chicken. Sanders wasn't asking for a salary or a big upfront fee. He only wanted a small royalty and a chance to prove how good his chicken could be for their business. It was a tough sell. Restaurant owners were skeptical. After all, who was this old man in a white suit claiming his fried chicken recipe was something special? As the story goes, Sanders' idea was rejected 1,009 times as he traveled from town to town, pitching to diner owners, cafe managers, and anyone who would listen to him. Think about that. 1,009 doors slammed in his face. 1,009 no thanks. It's hard to even imagine enduring that level of repeated rejection. Would you have kept going even after a dozen rejections, let alone a few hundred? Many people would have quit, but not the Colonel. Persistence was his superpower. He kept driving, kept cooking, and kept persisting, convinced that eventually, one yes would make all the difference. Finally, someone said yes. In 1952, Sanders had found his first true franchise partner, Pete Harmon, who ran a restaurant in Salt Lake City, Utah. Harmon believed in the idea, and when he put Kentucky Fried Chicken on his menu, sales skyrocketed. In fact, it was Harmon's restaurant that helped coin the name Kentucky Fried Chicken. A sign painter hired by Harmon came up with the moniker to make it sound unique and special. Within weeks, Harmon's restaurant saw a huge increase in business from selling the Colonel's chicken. This validation must have been incredibly encouraging for Sanders. Armed with this success story, he continued his journey to sign up more restaurants. One by one, small eateries and diners across the country agreed to add Colonel Sanders fried chicken to their menu. Sanders often slept in his car to save money and maximize time on the road. He would show up at a restaurant, knock on the kitchen door, and basically say, "I'll cook you the best fried chicken you've ever tasted. If your customers like it, let's make a deal." His charisma and unwavering belief in his chicken were as important as the recipe itself. Eventually, the tide started to turn. The no's started turning into yeses. By 1960, just 4 years after he started, Colonel Sanders had franchised his chicken to 400 restaurants across the United States and Canada. The concept of Kentucky Fried Chicken was gaining momentum. Harlan Sanders, once a penniless retiree, was now on his way to becoming a nationally known businessman in his 70s. The birth of Kentucky Fried Chicken. As the number of franchisees grew, Sanders incorporated his business and formally named it Kentucky Fried Chicken. He and his wife Claudia even opened a new base of operations in Shelbyville, Kentucky in 1959 to handle the franchise business. Claudia mixed the secret herbs and spices in bulk and shipped seasoning packets to the restaurants, so the owners themselves never learned the Colonel's full secret recipe. This ensured that only Sanders and his confidants knew the exact blend of 11 herbs and spices. Kentucky Fried Chicken became one of the first fast food chains to expand internationally, opening outlets in Canada and by the mid-1960s reaching out as far as the UK, Mexico, and Japan. The pressure-cooked fried chicken with a finger-licking good taste was a hit far and wide. By 1963, Colonel Sanders had over 600 franchise outlets selling his chicken, and KFC was becoming a household name. The rapid growth was exciting, but it was also overwhelming for Sanders, who was now in his 70s. He was a one-man franchise salesman and quality controller, and the sheer volume of restaurants was a lot for an elderly gentleman to manage. In 1964, at 73 years old, Harlan Sanders made a pivotal decision. He sold Kentucky Fried Chicken to a group of investors for $2 million, about $20 million in today's money. This deal made Sanders a wealthy man at last. Importantly, the sale terms kept Sanders on as the face of the brand, a salaried goodwill ambassador, and he retained certain rights like ownership of the Canadian KFC operations and some domestic franchise rights. KFC was no longer Sanders' personal business, but he was forever its founder and figurehead. Sanders had mixed feelings about selling KFC. It was his baby, but the new owners promised to honor the quality and expand the brand, and expand it they did. Over the late 1960s and 1970s, KFC exploded in growth, adding thousands of new locations across the globe. Colonel Sanders, meanwhile, remained deeply involved in the company's public image. He donned his white suit and black string tie, which he famously never took off in public in his later years, and traveled around doing commercial appearances, grand opening events, and quality checks. He reportedly traveled over 200,000 miles per year, even in his 70s and 80s, visiting KFC restaurants worldwide as a one-man quality inspector and goodwill ambassador. For years, he literally carried the secret recipe in his head and a stash of spice mix in his car trunk as he crisscrossed the country, a testament to how hands-on he remained. The original KFC franchise in South Salt Lake, Utah, opened by Pete Harmon in 1952, proudly displays its status as the world's first KFC. The Colonel's blend of spices and his insistence on quality sometimes led to friction with the company owners. Sanders was known to burst into franchise kitchens unannounced. If the gravy or chicken didn't meet his standards, he'd let the staff have an earful, once describing a new gravy recipe as pure wallpaper paste and sludge in an interview. He was fiercely protective of the brand's reputation for good food. Despite any behind-the-scenes squabbles, in the public eye, Colonel Sanders was hugely popular. He became a living mascot for KFC, with his kindly Southern gentleman image and delicious chicken captivating the public. Legacy of a legend. Colonel Harlan Sanders passed away in 1980 at the age of 90, having lived an extraordinary life. In his final years, he had achieved a level of fame few even attain. In fact, an independent survey in 1976 ranked Colonel Sanders as the second most recognizable celebrity in the world, just behind boxing champion and fellow Kentucky icon Muhammad Ali. Think about that. A man who didn't achieve global success until his 70s managed to become more recognizable worldwide than most actors, politicians, or rock stars. His face, with the white hair, the mustache, the goatee, the glasses, beamed down from KFC signs on street corners across America and beyond. Today, Colonel Sanders' legacy lives on every time you pass a KFC or see a red and white bucket of fried chicken. What started as one determined old man with a recipe grew into one of the largest restaurant chains in the world. From that first franchise in Utah, KFC expanded to hundreds of locations by the 1960s and kept on growing. As of 2024, KFC has over 29,000 restaurants in 147 countries and territories worldwide. Over 29,000. The image of the Colonel still smiles from its logo, reminding us of the brand's heritage. It's a heritage of Southern comfort food, a secret recipe that hasn't changed since 1940, and one man's relentless pursuit of a dream. And what a dream it was. Colonel Sanders became rich and famous, but he never forgot his humble origins. He often said that his life was an example of what a person can do if they simply refuse to give up. His oft-quoted mantra was that your dreams have no expiration date. Sanders proved that by starting a global business at 65, an age when conventional wisdom suggests it's too late to start new. He once said that he was glad he didn't know how old he was supposed to be when starting over because it might have made him doubt he could do it at all. It's never too late to start again. Colonel Sanders' story is more than just a tale of a fried chicken magnate. It's a story about one's faith in oneself and perseverance against the odds. He faced poverty, family troubles, business failures, and countless rejections. He started and lost multiple careers. He was truly starting from zero in his mid-60s when many people would simply resign to quiet retirement. Instead, he mustered the courage to try one more time, to drive around the country and literally knock on doors to pursue his dream. That level of determination is rare, and it's why his story has inspired millions. So, the next time you see a KFC, remember that it stands as a monument to not giving up. Colonel Sanders often said that he got rich by accident, but the truth is that it was his grit and his refusal to quit that made that accident possible. In our own lives, we can take a page from the Colonel's book. Believe in your idea, work tirelessly, and don't let age or past failures stop you. As Sanders himself showed, your next success might just be one more try away, even if you've been rejected 1,000 times before. So whatever goal or dream you have, whether you're 25 or 65 or 85, keep Colonel Sanders in mind. Your dreams don't have an expiration date. It's never too late to start again or try something new. Colonel Harlan Sanders built a finger-looking good empire from nothing but a recipe, a pressure cooker, and an unshakable belief in himself. If he could do that starting at 65 years old, ask yourself, what's stopping you? Believe in yourself, stay persistent, and who knows, you just might cook up something amazing. Elon Musk had lost everything. His companies were collapsing, SpaceX had 3 rocket failures, Tesla was on the brink of bankruptcy. He was out of money, sleeping on a friend's couch, and days away from total failure. One more wrong move and it was over. In 2008, Musk was at rock bottom. SpaceX had burned through millions and every launch ended in disaster. Tesla couldn't afford to pay employees, investors were pulling out. Experts called him a fool. People begged him to stop. They said, give up before you lose it all. Even his closest friends thought it was over, but Musk refused. With his last bit of cash, he gambled on one final rocket launch. If it failed, SpaceX was dead. On September 28, 2008, the 4th rocket launched. It soared into orbit. Success. That moment changed everything. NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract. Tesla secured last-minute funding. In just a few months, Musk went from nearly losing it all to shaping the future of space and electric cars. He could have quit. He almost did. But he bet on himself when no one else would. When everything is against you, will you give up or will you push through until you win? Early challenges and bold ambitions. Elon Musk's resilience was forged pretty early on. Growing up in South Africa, he was a shy, nerdy kid who loved science fiction and computers. He also faced brutal bullying in school. Once a group of boys shoved young Elon down a flight of concrete stairs and beat him so badly that he was hospitalized. Instead of that breaking him, those early hardships toughened Musk's resolve. He became obsessed with technology and problem solving, teaching himself programming at the age of 10 and dreaming of big adventures in America and outer space. As a young man, Elon left South Africa alone at 17 to seek opportunities in North America. He worked odd jobs and survived on $1 a day food budgets at times, all to chase his vision down. By his mid-20s, that drive was paying off. In 1995, he started his first company, Zip2, sleeping in the office and coding night and day. Just 4 years later, Compaq bought Zip2 for over $300 million, netting Musk $22 million for his share. He immediately rolled those winnings into a new venture, X.com, an online banking startup that would merge to form PayPal. In 2002, PayPal was acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion, and Musk walked away with around $175 million at just 31 years old. Musk could have retired a wealthy man right there, but money was never his goal. Impact was. He often said he felt humans weren't doing enough to advance space travel or sustainable energy. So instead of kicking back, he bet it all on two wildly ambitious startups. SpaceX, founded in 2002 to build reusable rockets and colonize Mars, and Tesla Motors, co-founded in 2004 to popularize electric cars. Over the next several years, Musk poured his entire PayPal fortune into these ventures. He once joked that the fastest way to become a millionaire is to start at a billionaire and then launch a rocket company. And he was living that joke. By 2008, after investing around $100 million in SpaceX and tens of millions into Tesla, Elon Musk was all in, financially and emotionally. He had gone from dot-com rich to cash-poor entrepreneur, trying to do what experts said was impossible. 2008, hitting rock bottom. 2008 was definitely the worst year of my life, Musk later said bluntly. And he wasn't exaggerating. By mid-2008, SpaceX had launched 3 test rockets, the Falcon 1, and all 3 exploded or failed to reach orbit. Each failure was a huge blow. Musk and his team would pick through charred rocket wreckage on a remote Pacific area, then go back to work prepping the next launch with dwindling funds. We were running on fumes at that point. A 4th failure would have been absolutely game over. Done, Musk recalled at that time. SpaceX was not going to survive another blow. At the same time, Tesla was also super struggling. The company had burned through most of its initial investment trying to get the Tesla Roadster, which was its first electric sports car, into production. Costs were wildly over budget and delays were growing. To make matters worse, 2008 brought a global financial crisis, the worst economic climate since the Great Depression, and venture funding for a risky car startup dried up. Tesla was unable to raise new money and was months from running out of cash. They couldn't afford to pay suppliers and were missing payroll. Musk, as Tesla's chairman and de facto chief, was scrambling to keep the lights on. Musk's personal life was falling apart as well. He was going through a painful divorce in 2008, which he later said made an already awful year even worse. He had 5 young children at the time and was splitting time between his struggling companies and family responsibilities. The stress was unimaginable. Musk's brother, Kimball, described Elon's financial state then as in debt, more than broke. Musk had no liquidity left. He had spent all his PayPal money to fund the companies and now had to borrow money to pay for personal expenses. By his own account, Musk was so financially strapped, he had to crash on friends' spare bedrooms because he could no longer afford a home. Imagine the pressure. Elon Musk was hailed as a dot-com superstar, and now all the experts were calling him a fool for thinking he could take on Boeing or Ford. Experts openly predicted his failure. In fact, Musk later revealed that back then, he put the odds of even Tesla's survival at less than 10%. The media was largely convinced SpaceX would blow up every rocket and Tesla would go bankrupt like other auto startups. Many in his own circle advised him to shut one company down and focus on the other. Musk faced an agonizing choice: try to save both companies and risk losing everything, or sacrifice one to maybe save the other. Years later, he described this dilemma. I could either split the funds I had between the two companies or focus them on one. This was a really tough decision. I decided in the end to split what I had to try to keep both companies alive, but that could have meant both died. And by stretching his remaining resources so thinly, he nearly killed both ventures, a decision he admitted could have been terrible. He also confessed, "I never thought I'd have a nervous breakdown, but I came pretty darn close." This was Elon Musk at rock bottom, exhausted, broke, ridiculed by his doubters, and genuinely unsure if his dreams were about to completely collapse. And truly, failure was right at his door. In August 2008, SpaceX's third rocket crashed and Tesla was weeks away from bankruptcy. He was nearly out of time. One more mistake and it was over. Refusing to quit. One more launch. So despite the crushing pressure, Elon Musk just refused to give up. When virtually everyone else would have folded, he kept pushing forward. He greenlit one last launch attempt for SpaceX, the fourth Falcon 1 flight, even though this would consume the last of his funds. There was only enough money and parts left for one more rocket. Musk later said of this pivotal moment, "This was the last money that we had for Falcon 1. That fourth launch worked, or that would have been it for SpaceX." In other words, it was do or die. SpaceX engineers knew they were working with a literal final shot. They doubled down on solving the issues from the previous failures, making a few final tweaks and praying for a little luck. Musk was so stressed that SpaceX engineer Eric Berger noted he was waking up from nightmares, screaming in physical pain due to the strain. Still, Elon rallied his team, telling them failure was not an option this time. Meanwhile, at Tesla, Musk was hustling to secure emergency financing to keep the company alive through the end of the year. He had already personally put in every dollar he could. "I gave Tesla the last of my remaining cash from PayPal," he said. And even that wasn't enough to cover payroll beyond Christmas. So essentially, Musk was juggling two ticking time bombs. September 28, 2008, Omelek Island, Pacific Ocean. The SpaceX team stood on a remote launch site, hearts pounding. Falcon 1 rose from the pad on its fourth attempt, carrying a dummy payload into the sky. Elon Musk watched anxiously as the rocket cleared each milestone that had doomed the last launch. 9 minutes later, success. Falcon 1 reached orbit, making the first ever privately built liquid fuel rocket to do so. Musk and his team were ecstatic. "Fate liked us that day," Musk said of the narrow victory. "In that triumphant moment, years of failure and despair were wiped away. SpaceX had proven it could build a viable rocket." The achievement was more historic, but more urgently, it meant SpaceX might not die after all. Now, SpaceX had momentum, and incredibly, just 2 days later, a phone call arrived that changed everything. NASA was on the line. On December 23rd, 2008, less than 3 months after Falcon 1 reached orbit, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to haul cargo to the International Space Station. This was part of NASA's new Commercial Orbital Transport Services, the COTS program, and SpaceX's little rocket company had beaten out bigger competitors. Musk was in shock. NASA called and told us, "We won. I couldn't even hold the phone. I just blurted out, 'I love you guys,'" he remembers. NASA had effectively thrown SpaceX a lifeline of funding and credibility. "They saved us," Musk said gratefully. The timing was nothing short of a miracle because over at Tesla, things had gone from bad to worse that December. By Christmas Eve 2008, Tesla was literally hours away from bankruptcy. The company needed an immediate cash infusion or it would miss payroll and likely collapse within days. Musk had lined up a last-ditch deal with investors, but it hadn't closed yet. He was running on pure faith. Then, in a dramatic 11th-hour deal, Tesla's investors agreed on December 24, 2008 to put in the needed funding to save the company. Musk himself put his last remaining personal dollars into the round to convince others to step up. The funding came through at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, the very last hour of the last possible day. If it had fallen apart, Tesla would have bounced paychecks 2 days later and likely never reopened. Musk later tweeted about that moment, "Tesla financing round closed at 6 p.m. December 24, 2008. Last hour of last day possible on payroll, would have bounced 2 days later, didn't even own a house or anything sellable." That was how close it was, but they made it. Tesla was saved by the thinnest margin imaginable. Now, in the span of just 3 days, Elon Musk went from staring into the abyss to achieving one of the greatest turnarounds in business history. As 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley summarized, "You were saved in the period of 3 days by two completely unexpected events. Merry Christmas." Musk could only reply, "Yes, absolutely." Rising from the ashes. With that struggle behind him, Elon Musk charged forward. The rockets haven't failed since, Pelley noted in 2012. And yes, after 2008, SpaceX began racking up successes. They developed the larger Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, and by 2012, SpaceX became the first private company to dock a vehicle at the space station. SpaceX went on to achieve many milestones, pioneering reusable rocket landing in 2015, launching the Falcon Heavy in 2018, and dramatically lowering the cost of space access. As of 2025, SpaceX is the world's world's dominant launch provider, outperforming even national space agencies. It's hard to believe that in 2008, they were one failed launch away from extinction. Tesla's rise was equally dramatic. After surviving the 2008 crisis, Tesla launched the Model S sedan in 2012 to widespread acclaim, proving electric cars could be fast, desirable, and commercially viable. By 2013, Tesla turned its first profit, and over the following years, it grew exponentially, backed by the Model 3, a mass-market electric car that fulfilled Musk's longer-term vision of affordable electric vehicles. There were still huge challenges. Musk called the 2017-2018 Model 3 ramp as production hell, during which Tesla nearly ran out of money again, but Musk met them head on. He famously worked 120-hour weeks, sleeping on the factory floor to solve production problems. If I didn't do it, there was a good chance Tesla would die, he explained after that all-consuming effort. His determination, though, it paid off. Tesla overcame the manufacturing crisis and went on to dominate the electric vehicle market. By 2020, Tesla had become the world's most valuable automaker, and as of 2025, it has a market cap of $1 trillion. In fact, Musk, once more than broke in 2008, is now frequently ranked as the richest person on the planet, which shows how wildly successful his vision has become. Today, Musk companies are literally shaping the future. SpaceX is developing Starship, the largest rocket ever, to enable multi-planetary travel. Tesla has sparked a global transition to electric vehicles and clean energy. Musk has also launched other ventures like Neuralink, which is a brain-computer interface, and even took on Twitter and rebranded it to X. Love or hate his bold style, Elon Musk has proven time and time again that extraordinary outcomes require extraordinary levels of work. His journey from the brink of ruin to world-changing success is almost legendary. I can't wait for the movie. Lessons from Musk's comeback. So Elon Musk's story shows tons of powerful lessons for any entrepreneur, any innovator, anyone doing anything that requires a ton of adversity. Perseverance in the face of doom. Musk is an example of just never giving up. He held on when others would have quit. And whether that was through the school bullying or nearly losing his companies, I don't ever give up, Musk has said. I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. This resolve is probably his greatest asset. When you feel like quitting, remember how close Musk came to failure in 2008 and how pushing through that final 1% made all the difference. Don't quit just because it's hard. You might be on the cusp of your next great success. Next, bold vision and risk-taking. Musk is not afraid to bet it all on a big dream. He invested his entire fortune in his vision to revolutionize space and energy. And that kind of bold risk-taking is scary. Musk literally put his own finances and reputation on the line. But with big risk comes the big reward. As Musk famously said, when something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. So don't let the fear of failure stop you from pursuing what you truly believe in. Be willing to swing for the fences when it actually matters. Next, embrace failure as a stepping stone. Those SpaceX rockets that blew up were brutal at the time, but each one taught Musk's team some really important lessons. Musk often says that failure is necessary for innovation. You have to iterate and learn from what went wrong. So don't see that failure as the end and it's all over. He treated it as a temporary setback on the way to success that he could learn from. This growth mindset kept his team improving until they finally succeeded. Fail early, fail forward, and don't take it personally. Next, insane work ethic and focus. So to pull off the 2008 save and later the 2018 Tesla ramp up, Musk have put in an incredible amount of work. We're talking 100-hour plus work weeks, sleeping under his desk, sleeping at the factory floor, doing whatever it took. He famously said, "No one ever changed the world on 40 hours a week." Now, Musk himself warns that this extreme schedule is not healthy for most people. But the core lesson is that something extraordinary often requires extraordinary effort. So when your back is against the wall, total focus and hard work can be the difference between your success and your failure. Next, purpose beyond profit. So through all of that hardship, through all that craziness, what kept Musk going was a sense of mission. It wasn't about making money. He was losing money constantly in 2008. It was about advancing humanity, bringing electric cars to the market, making space travel affordable. Having a purpose bigger than himself gave Musk the courage to keep going. In your own path, connecting to a deeper purpose can give you the strength to endure some of the toughest challenges. Musk's passion and his vision, it became contagious. It inspired his team and attracted critical support at the darkest moments. From done to destiny. Elon Musk's 2008 comeback story is a stuff of entrepreneurial legend. One moment, he was a step away from total defeat. Pretty dark, as he said. And moments later, he was signing billion-dollar contracts and securing lifelines for his companies. He went from sleeping on a friend's couch, wondering if he'd gone insane, to gamble on rockets and electric cars, to literally changing the world within a few short years. So think about it. If SpaceX's fourth launch had failed, or if Tesla's investors did not come through on Christmas Eve, we might not have reusable rockets re-landing on drone ships or electric cars everywhere today. Musk was that close to being a cautionary tale instead of the visionary icon that we know. What turned it all around was Musk's just refusal to surrender. He was down to his last chips. Everyone told him to fold, but he kept betting on himself, and it worked. By pushing through the worst times, Musk and his team unlocked breakthroughs that made history. His story reminds us that sometimes the biggest wins come just one step beyond your lowest low. So you can ask yourself, when everything is against you, when you're exhausted, when you're on the brink of failure, when every expert says that you can't do it, will you give up? Or will you find that last ounce of strength, adapt, and push through until you win? Elon Musk almost quit in 2008. He almost decided to cut his losses, but he didn't. He held on, and in doing so, he changed his life and arguably the world. So the next time you feel like you're at your breaking point, remember Elon Musk's journey from rock bottom to unbelievable success. Remember that the night is darkest just before dawn. Your comeback could be right around the corner too, if you have the courage to keep moving forward. Ray Kroc's story proves that it's never too late to start chasing your entrepreneurial dreams. At 52 years old, Ray Kroc was a struggling salesman peddling milkshake mixers door to door. Most people at his age, especially being broke and facing constant rejection, would have given up on a grand ambition, but not Ray. He refused to believe that his time had passed or that success had a deadline. His belief in action at an age many considered too late led to the creation of one of the world's largest business empires. So if you think you've missed your window to succeed, think again. Ray's journey might change your mind. It's never too late to start. You might feel that age is holding you back, but Ray Kroc is living and now legendary proof that entrepreneurship has no age limit. He found his life-defining opportunity at a time when most people start planning for retirement. In 1954, at an age when his peers were slowing down, Ray stumbled upon a small hamburger stand in San Bernardino, California, run by the McDonald brothers. He was 52 years old, broke, and already had worked a bunch of odd jobs, from paper cup salesman to piano player, without major success. Yet, instead of seeing himself as too old, Ray saw this as the beginning of something new. In fact, research backs up the idea that success isn't just a young person's game. Harvard Business Review found that the average age of a successful startup founder is actually 45, not 25. And for the fastest growing new ventures, the founder's average age was 45 as well. You are never too old to start your dream. Ray Kroc started at 52 and changed the world. So what's stopping you from starting now? The signs of older entrepreneurs. Those extra years of experience can be a huge asset. A study showed founders with at least 3 years of work experience before starting a company were 85% more likely to succeed. By age 52, Ray had seen it all. Economic ups and downs, countless kitchens and businesses, and he used that knowledge to his advantage. So don't let anyone tell you your age is a weakness. If anything, it gave Ray a competitive edge in wisdom and resilience. Maybe your life experience is exactly what your venture needs to thrive. Ray Kroc isn't alone. Quick side note, Colonel Sanders franchised KFC in his 60s, and an HBR study found peak entrepreneurial success often happens for founders in their 40s and 50s. The entrepreneurial landscape is full of late bloomers. So if you've been telling yourself it's too late to start, consider this a friendly challenge. Your timeline is just getting started. Ray Kroc's massive success after 50 can be the rule, not the exception, when you bring experience, passion, and perseverance into your venture. Spot opportunities where others see none. One of Ray Kroc's greatest strengths was vision and the ability to see game-changing opportunity where everyone else just saw a tiny burger stand. So picture this, it's 1954, and you walk into a small, speedy service hamburger joint in California. Most people would think, nice place for a quick bite. But Ray, he thought this could be huge. The McDonald's brothers had perfected a system to deliver burgers in 30 seconds, and Ray immediately recognized the power of this efficiency. Where others saw a mom and pop restaurant, he saw the blueprint for a global franchise. Having vision means spotting value that's hidden in plain sight. As an entrepreneur,
You need to train yourself to see what others overlook. Ray had been in over 1,000 restaurant kitchens as a mixer salesman. So when he saw the McDonald's operation, the cleanliness, the speed, the simplicity, he knew it was something special. In his own words, traditional hamburger joints were often dirty and rowdy. In my experience, hamburger joints are nothing but jukeboxes, payphones, smoking rooms, and guys in leather jackets. I wouldn't take my wife to such a place, Ray said. McDonald's was different, and he caught that difference immediately. The lesson is train your entrepreneurial eye. Just as Ray noticed the efficient, speedy service system on that tennis court blueprint the brothers showed him, you should look for innovations or unmet needs in your industry. Is there something working in a small corner that could scale up big? Is there a customer pain point no one has solved? Opportunities often come dressed in overalls and look like work, or like a small unproven venture. Ray's breakthrough came from noticing a better system for fast food service. What tiny gold mine might be hiding in your day-to-day observations right now? Be open-minded. Ray's story also teaches the value of open-mindedness. He was selling mixers, not looking to buy a restaurant. He could have taken the McDonald brothers' order for 8 multi-mixers and moved on. But instead, he stayed curious and asked questions about why they needed so many milkshake machines. That curiosity led him to the opportunity of a lifetime. You never know where your big break will come from. Keep your mind open and ask questions. Opportunities often knock softly. Bet on yourself and take the risk. Opportunities mean nothing if you're not willing to bet on yourself. Ray Kroc did exactly that. He went all in on his vision. When he decided to franchise McDonald's nationally, hardly anyone believed in the idea as passionately as he did. Banks were skeptical. Potential investors were lukewarm at best. And even the McDonald's brothers themselves were content with their small operation. But Ray had unwavering conviction. He put his own skin in the game, literally his own house on the line. In the early days, Ray was so determined to expand that he took out second mortgages on his home to raise capital. So think about that. He was willing to risk his home and personal finances because he believed McDonald's could be something far greater. That kind of bold risk-taking, it's scary, but also sends a powerful message to others and to yourself that you truly believe in your mission. Big risks can yield big rewards. Entrepreneurs often face moments where they have to decide, do I play it safe? Or do I bet big on my dream? Ray's decision to mortgage his home and even reportedly borrow against his life insurance, as depicted in stories and films about him, it shows the adage that big payoffs require big risks. Now, this doesn't mean be reckless for no reason. Ray's risk was calculated. He wasn't gambling on some idea. He had spent time validating the McDonald's concept, opening a successful first franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois in 1955. He did his homework and knew the potential, which gave him the courage to bet on himself. If you've done your due diligence and truly believe in what you're building, sometimes you have to take that leap. It might be quitting your steady job, it might be investing your savings, or signing a personal guarantee. Moves that feel scary, but can unlock the next level of growth. Silence the naysayers. When Ray was pitching the idea of franchising McDonald's across the country, he heard a lot of no. No one believed him at first. But here's the entrepreneurial truth. If you believe in yourself enough, you don't need everyone else to believe right away. You just need to get started and show the results. Ray's confidence was contagious over time. As he opened more restaurants and proved the model, skeptics turned into supporters. By betting on himself initially, he eventually won others' bets on him too. So the next time someone doubts your bold idea, remember that Ray Kroc faced doubters too. What matters is he didn't doubt himself. And by taking the risk they wouldn't, he achieved what they couldn't. Persevere through rejection and adversity. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster of highs and lows. Rejection, setbacks, and adversity are all part of the game, and Ray Kroc had plenty of them. Early on, as he tried to grow McDonald's, he struggled financially and emotionally. The franchise model he set up gave a small royalty to the McDonald's brothers, which meant Ray was often cash poor and struggling to pay bills, despite having a brisk business. He expanded rapidly, sometimes outpacing his capital. More than once, he was on the brink of failure. He even had a falling out with the McDonald's brothers, who were resistant to some of his expansion ideas and changes. Imagine pouring your heart into building a business, only to have the original founders second-guess your move at every turn. It was frustrating enough that by 1961, Ray decided to buy them out entirely to have a free hand, for a hefty price of $2.7 million. That was another risky move loaded with challenges. He had to scrap together financing while essentially negotiating with his last bit of leverage.
Through all these struggles, Ray's persistence never wavered. He had a mantra: keep going, keep pushing, find a way. When one door shut, he looked for a window. Learn from setbacks. Ray's difficulties taught him and his team to innovate around problems. For instance, when he was cash-strapped, his financial advisor, Harry Sanborn, devised a brilliant strategy. McDonald's wouldn't just be a burger business, it would be a real estate business. The company would own or control the land and leases under the new restaurants. This strategy, focusing on franchising through real estate leases, gave McDonald's a steady revenue stream and more control, digging a company out of a financial hole and setting it up for massive scalability. That innovation was born directly from hardship. The takeaway for you is that every challenge contains an opportunity if you look hard enough. So the next time you face a big setback, a deal falls through, your funding dries up, a partner backs out, ask yourself, what is this obstacle teaching me? How can I turn this problem into a new solution? Ray Kroc did this repeatedly. Stay persistent. There's a simple reason McDonald's became a global empire. Ray just didn't quit. It sounds obvious, but think of how many times you've heard of entrepreneurs give up after a couple of failures or a few years of struggle. Ray spent decades hustling into his late 50s, 60s, and beyond. He faced rejection from investors, pushback from the McDonald's brothers, and even his own health issues. He had diabetes and arthritis while working crazy hours. Yet he kept showing up day after day. That kind of grit is science-backed too. Psychologists call it grit, a mix of passion and perseverance, and it's often a better predictor of success than talent or IQ. Ray's life embodied grit. So when you hit a rough patch, remember, the entrepreneurs who make it big aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who refuse to give up. Build a great team and culture. While we often celebrate Ray Kroc as a visionary, he didn't build McDonald's alone. One of his core beliefs was the power of a great team. Ray famously said, "None of us is as good as all of us." In other words, individual talent matters, but teamwork wins in the end. Ray understood that to scale McDonald's, he needed not just franchise owners with money, but partners who shared his obsession with quality and service. He handpicked franchisees who were hungry to succeed and maintained high standards rather than just selling franchises to anybody with a checkbook. This was actually a revolutionary approach at the time. Instead of granting big multi-region franchise rights to investors, which could make super quick money, he insisted on one store at a time per franchisee. It allowed him to vet and control the quality of each new owner. It might have slowed the initial pace, but it paid off in consistency. Ray also knew he needed top-notch people in his company, so he brought on talented individuals like Fred Turner, who started as a grill cook and became McDonald's long-standing CEO, and Sanborn, the finance wizard. His philosophy, you're only as good as the people you hire, and he meant it. Empower and trust your team. Once he had the right people, Ray empowered them. He created a culture of ownership and pride among franchisees and employees. Each franchise owner wasn't just a manager, they were a business owner with skin in the game and motivation to uphold the brand's reputation. Ray organized franchise conferences, he shared best practices, and built what he called a three-legged stool of McDonald's franchise system. So one leg is the company, one leg is the suppliers, and one leg is the franchisees, all mutually supporting each other. So for you, the lesson is invest in your team and treat your partners and employees as critical pillars of your business. Give them reason to care as much as you do. When your team feels ownership, they'll go the extra mile to make sure the business succeeds, even when you're not in the room. Cultivate a strong company culture. Ray Kroc was almost fanatic about the McDonald's culture. He fostered an environment of excellence down to the smallest details. He wanted McDonald's to stand for quality, service, and cleanliness. Those are his three watchwords. He dropped in unannounced to restaurants to inspect standards. He set up Hamburger University in 1961 to train franchisees and managers on the McDonald's way. This culture of high standards and continuous training created a unified team spirit across thousands of locations. As an entrepreneur, your business's culture is your foundation. So ask yourself, what values do I want every team member to embody? How do we treat our customers and each other? Define it early and reinforce it often, like Ray did. A strong culture not only improves in performance, it also attracts people who believe what you believe. And when everyone is rowing in the same direction, there's no limit to how far you can go. Build systems and emphasize consistency. If there's one business lesson to learn from Ray Kroc, it's this: scale comes from systems. Ray wasn't just selling burgers, he was building a system. a repeatable process that could deliver the same McDonald's experience in every city, every country, every time. This focus on systems is what allowed McDonald's to explode from a single stand to an international behemoth. Ray took the assembly line concept from manufacturing and applied it to fast food. The McDonald's brothers already had the speedy service system, and Ray doubled down on it, ensuring every step of burger making and service was standardized. He famously insisted that a McDonald's French fry must taste the same in New York as it does in Tokyo. That meant detailed operation manuals, strict training, and constant audits for consistency. It might sound rigid, but customers loved it. They knew exactly what they were getting, and that reliability built trust and a powerful brand. Quality, service, cleanliness became Ray's holy trinity for McDonald's, and he measured everything against those metrics. For example, he set rules that fries had to be precisely 0.28 inches thick to get the perfect crisp and cooked for exactly X minutes at Y temperature. No improvising. Burgers had uniform weights and build. Even the amount of ketchup was proportioned by a dispenser to ensure consistency. Ray would nix any cost-cutting ideas that compromised quality, like when someone suggested using cheaper soy filler in the meat. He refused because it wasn't the real beef taste that customers expected. This relentless consistency was the magic. It turned McDonald's into a well-oiled machine. So as an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what are the core activities of your business, and how can you turn them into scalable systems? Whether that's a service process, a manufacturing method, a marketing funnel you're doing, document it, refine it, and replicate it. It's not as sexy as improvising on the fly, but consistency is key if you want to build big. Work on your business, not just in it. Ray Kroc epitomized the role of the entrepreneur working on the business. He wasn't in the back flipping burgers after the very early days. He was designing better kitchen layouts. He was improving the training programs. He was finding smarter ways to do everything. He was the architect and the engineer of the McDonald's system. So take a page from Ray. Step back from the day-to-day grunt work whenever you can and focus on creating systems that enable others to deliver great results. Now, that might mean creating standard operating procedures. It might mean investing in a good CRM or software, or simply teaching your method to your team. The more your business can run like a system, the more it can grow beyond you. Ray's franchise model worked because any new location could plug into the proven McDonald's system and hit the ground running, maintaining the same standards that made the original store successful. Innovate your systems continuously. Note that Ray didn't set the system in stone and forget it. He was always looking for ways to make it better. For example, Ray tested new menu items and processes constantly. He encouraged innovation, as long as it didn't break the consistency. The Filet-O-Fish sandwich, for example, that was introduced by a franchisee, and Ray approved it because it catered to Catholic customers who didn't eat meat on Fridays. It became a hit. The lesson is to keep improving your systems. Even as you standardize, stay agile and open to tweaks that can enhance quality or your efficiency. Ray sat in his jacuzzi brainstorming how to make McDonald's more efficient. Even in his relaxation, he was thinking of improvements. That's the mindset of a systems-focused entrepreneur. Work hard and create your own luck. Ray Kroc often said, luck is a dividend of sweat. The more you sweat, the luckier you get. So let that sink in. Your luck in business is mostly the result of your hard work. From the outside, some might say Ray Kroc got lucky in meeting the McDonald's brothers or being in the right place at the right time. But was it luck? Or was it decades of hustling that positioned him for that opportunity? Remember, when Ray drove across the country selling milkshake mixers, enduring rejection after rejection, he was effectively outworking others and putting himself in the path of opportunities. If he hadn't been grinding it out on the road, he would never have found that little burger stand in San Bernardino. His intense work ethic continued throughout the McDonald's journey. In his 50s and 60s, Ray was known to work long hours, visit multiple cities in a week, and personally ensure that new franchisees were up to snuff. While many people his age were winding down, Ray was accelerating. That sweat equity translated into lucky breaks, like finding key franchisees and investors at just the right time. Hustle smartly every day. As an entrepreneur, you have to put in the work. There's no way around it. But Ray Kroc's story adds a twist. It's not just about working hard, but also working smart and being persistent. He kept knocking on doors and pitching his vision, even when 100 people said no. Eventually, someone said yes. It's a numbers game sometimes. The more at-bats you have, the greater the chance you hit a home run. If you're sitting around waiting for success to fall into your lap, you could be waiting forever. Instead, maximize your chances for luck by staying active and engaged. Meet more people, make more calls, create more prototypes, whatever it takes in your field. Each effort is like buying another lottery ticket. Except in business, you influence the odds by how hard and smart you work. Ray's sweat quote is a reminder that you make your own luck through relentless effort. Embrace the grind. There's a certain grind to building something big. Ray loved the process. He was known for his enthusiasm and his hands-on approach. A 1977 Success magazine profile described how even in his mid-70s, Ray would get excited talking about new menu items like a little kid. His boyish delight had the audience unconsciously smacking their lips, the writer said. That kind of passion for the grind is contagious. If you show up energized and ready to work every day, your team feeds off that energy. Hard work doesn't have to be miserable if you're fired up by your mission. Ray definitely had tiring days and stressful days. He once even had scolded his baseball team over the PA system, saying, "I've never seen such stupid ball playing in my life," when they were losing. Clearly a man who demands effort. But fundamentally, he enjoyed the building, the solving of problems, the game of business. Try to find that joy in your hustle. It will keep you going when things are tough. And when others see you grinding happily, they'll believe in your vision even more. Love what you do and put customers first. Ray Kroc didn't start McDonald's just to make a quick buck. He genuinely loved the business of serving a great burger efficiently and was obsessed with customer satisfaction. One of Ray Kroc's most famous quotes is, "If you work just for money, you'll never make it. But if you love what you're doing and you always put the customer first, success will be yours." This is pure gold advice for any entrepreneur. Passion for your work fuels you through the hard times, and focusing on your customers' needs ensures that you're always delivering value, which is the only sustainable way to succeed in business. Ray demonstrated this philosophy throughout his life. He wasn't from a food background initially, but he fell in love with the McDonald's concept and that joy of serving people. He famously would pick up trash from the parking lot when visiting franchisees, even as chairman of the company, because he believed in a clean environment for customers. He was fanatical about things like friendly service, clean bathrooms, hot fast food, not because some spreadsheet told him to be, but because he truly cared about the customer experience. Mission over money. Ray became very wealthy, hundreds of millions by the end of his life. But interestingly, he didn't start off chasing money. In fact, in the early years of expansion, he drew a very modest salary and plowed everything back into the business. His first wife noted that Ray was more married to McDonald's than to her. That shows you the level of passion he had, to the detriment of his personal life, perhaps. The lesson here isn't to sacrifice your relationships, your marriage, but to align your business with something that you truly care about. If you love the problem that you're solving or you love the product that you're making, that genuine enthusiasm will show in how you treat your customers and how much effort you pour into the quality. Customers can tell when a business is just trying to squeeze dollars out of them versus when they sincerely want to serve. Ray wanted every McDonald's visit to be a delightful experience, and that intention translated into policies and actions that made McDonald's beloved by millions. Customer obsession as strategy. In the early days, Ray would personally field customer complaints and use them to improve his operations. He instituted this policy. If an order was wrong or took too long, the customer got their money back. This might have cost a little in the short run, but it paid back tenfold in loyalty and reputation. Under Ray's leadership, McDonald's focus was the customer is king. So for your business, listen to your customers closely. Treat their feedback as an ultimate guide. If you delight them, they will not only come back, they'll also bring their friends. Ray understood the lifetime value of a happy customer long before it was a buzzword in business. And by empowering every franchise owner and employee to put customer satisfaction above all, even profits in the moment, he built a brand that people trusted. So as you grow, never get lost in the spreadsheets or the tech or whatever that you forget the human being using your product or service. Put them first, as Ray Kroc did, and success will follow. Think big,
and long-term. Perhaps the most inspiring part of Ray's Kroc journey is how big his vision ultimately became. Remember, he started with one small restaurant in Illinois in 1955. By the time of his death in 1984, McDonald's had grown to 7,500 outlets in 32 countries, a mind-blowing expansion in under 30 years. And he wasn't even done. Today, McDonald's has over 40,000 locations worldwide and serves approximately 69 million customers every day. Ray didn't live to see the full extent of it, but he set the company on a trajectory for that massive scale by always thinking long term. He was never just looking at next month or next year. He was envisioning decades ahead, a McDonald's in every town, in every country. That long-term thinking influenced how he structured the business, franchising for rapid expansion, owning the land for stability, and how he maintained standards to protect the brand for generations. For example, when Ray negotiated buying out the McDonald's brothers in 1961, $2.7 million was an enormous sum and a huge gamble for him. But Ray wasn't thinking about the cost that year. He was thinking about owning the future of the company. He was investing in a vision of a worldwide McDonald's. As an entrepreneur, cultivating that big picture, long-term mindset is crucial if you aim to build something that lasts. Resilience for the long haul. Thinking long-term also helps you endure these short-term setbacks. Ray had many opportunities to get discouraged. Even after the buyout, growth was not this straight line up. New competitors emerged, think Burger King, Wendy's, etc. Economic recessions hit. Tastes continued to change. But Ray kept the faith that if McDonald's stuck to its principles and kept expanding carefully, the brand would outlast the challenges. And it did. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you're only chasing quick wins, you might flame out fast. But if you're building with a vision of being around in 10, 20, 50 years, you'll make different and hopefully better decisions. You'll prioritize customer trust over quick profit. You'll invest in relationships and reputation. And you won't be thrown off course by every little minor hiccup. Ray Kroc didn't see immediate millionaire status. It took years before McDonald's really exploded. But when it did, it was unstoppable. So keep your eyes on the horizon and your feet moving forward. Legacy and impact. Finally, think about what impact you want to have. Ray wasn't just building a company. He was, in his eyes, changing how people eat and how businesses operate. He has been called the father of modern franchising. His impact is felt not only in those golden arches of McDonald's, ubiquitous across the globe, but in millions of jobs created. McDonald's is the second largest private employer in the world with 1.7 million employees, second only to Walmart. And even in culture, at one point, it was estimated 1 in 8 Americans had worked at a McDonald's at some point in their life. That's an entry-level opportunity legacy. Ray also poured his success into philanthropy. He and his wife helped start the Ronald McDonald House Charities, and Joan Kroc donated billions to causes later. When you start something, you never know how big it might get or how many lives that you might touch. Ray Kroc likely didn't predict all of that when he first envisioned more McDonald's restaurants, but he dreamed big and aimed for maximum impact. So why not you? Why not think about your business in terms of serving the world, not just serving your neighborhood? Why not aim to leave a legacy that makes you proud? Dreaming big costs nothing. And even if you achieve a fraction of your audacious vision, it could be extraordinary. One video closer to your best self. By now, you can probably see the pieces of your own journey in Ray Kroc's story. Maybe you're at a point where you feel it's too late, or you're battling through the doubters and the difficulties. Maybe you're still fine-tuning your systems, or you're trying to find the right team. Wherever you are, keep going. Ray Kroc built a hamburger empire starting at 52 through vision, grit, and an unshakable belief in his dream. And you can build your dream too. Remember to believe in yourself when no one else does, to focus on serving your customers exceptionally well, and to never shy away from the hard work. You being here, learning and investing time in yourself shows that you're serious about growth. It shows that you understand the power of surrounding yourself with positive inspiration and knowledge. Every day you feed your mind with success stories and strategies, you are crafting an environment of greatness for yourself. Larry Ellison went from dropping out of college twice, being rejected by over 30 tech companies, including NASA, and earning just $400 a month working as a programmer, to co-founding Oracle and building it into a $922 billion top player in software, making him one of the richest people in the world with a net worth of around $393 billion. Larry Ellison was born in 1944 in New York City. His mother died when he was just 9, so he grew up with his aunt in Chicago. Money was tight, and as a teenager, Larry worked small jobs delivering newspapers, washing dishes, and mowing lawns just to help pay for school.
In 1962, Larry went to college at the University of Chicago, but he dropped out. He felt the classes didn't teach him the practical skills that he wanted. A few years later, he tried again at the University of Illinois, but he dropped out a second time because he realized he could learn more about computers on his own. And by the late 1960s, Larry was working as a programmer, earning just $400 a month. He applied to over 30 tech companies, including NASA, but was rejected by all of them. Most companies turned him down because he didn't have a college degree and had very little work experience. Larry felt frustrated and discouraged, but he didn't give up. He spent every free hour learning about computers and teaching himself how to code. He wanted to build something big. In 1977, Larry co-founded Oracle, originally called Software Development Laboratories, with a small team and a tiny investment. They worked long hours in a tiny office, coding software that could help companies organize and manage their data. At first, people doubted him. Investors said, databases are too complicated, you'll never sell this, and no one will pay for software like yours. The big break for him came in the early 1980s when IBM decided to try Oracle's database software for one of their projects. IBM's decision proved that Oracle's software worked, and soon other companies started using it too. That first major client launched Oracle's growth, and the company quickly became a leading player in the software world. Today, Oracle's market value is around $922 billion, and Larry Ellison is one of the richest people in the world with a net worth of approximately $393 billion, briefly overtaking Elon Musk as the world's richest person in 2025. Larry's story shows that even when money is tight, doors keep closing and people doubt you. Learning every day, working harder than anyone else, and believing in your idea can take you all the way to the top. Humble beginnings in Chicago. Larry Ellison was born in 1944 in New York City to a young single mother. As a child, he nearly died of pneumonia, and his mother felt she couldn't raise him. She gave him up for adoption to her aunt and uncle in Chicago. Larry grew up on Chicago's South Side in a modest two-bedroom apartment as part of a working-class family. Money was tight, and as a teenager, Larry worked small jobs, delivering newspapers, washing dishes, mowing lawns, just to help pay for school. Ellison's adoptive father, Louis, had lost his fortune in the Great Depression and was a harsh, unsupportive figure in his life. In fact, as Larry later recalled, his dad repeatedly told him he was good for nothing. Imagine hearing that as a child. It could crush anyone's spirit. But for Larry, his father's constant put-downs lit a fire inside him. If fire doesn't destroy you, you're tempered by it. Thanks, Dad, Larry said later, believing that his father's tough treatment actually forged his resilience. Now, despite all of the problems at home, Larry was a smart kid. He loved math and science and showed an independent, rebellious streak from early on. He refused to simply go along with things that didn't make sense to him, which was a trait that would both get him into trouble as a student and serve him well as an entrepreneur later. Dropping out twice. In 1962, Larry Ellison left Chicago to attend the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He did brilliantly in subjects that he was interested in. He even was named Science Student of the Year in his first year. But in his sophomore year, tragedy struck. His adoptive mother, who had been the source of warmth and support in his life, died suddenly. Heartbroken and grieving, Larry couldn't face his final exams and dropped out of college. A few months later, he tried to restart college at the University of Chicago. This is where Larry first encountered computers and programming, and it fascinated him. However, he stayed at Chicago for only one term before dropping out a second time. Why leave again so soon? Partly because Larry realized the classes weren't teaching him the practical skills that he craved, and partly because his independent streak made it hard for him to sit through courses that he just didn't find useful. As he later admitted, "I never accepted conventional wisdom. It got me in terrible trouble in a school system that tries to get you to conform," especially since he only wanted to study what truly interested him. Dropping out twice earned Larry a lot of criticism. Friends and family were concerned he was going nowhere. His father even declared that Larry would never amount to anything. It's hard to imagine a bigger emotional low point. By his early 20s, Larry had no degree, no plan, and the people around him pretty much had written him off. But Larry was about to prove them all wrong in his own way. Bouncing between jobs and learning to code. So after leaving college in 1966, Larry Ellison packed his belongings into his car and drove to California in search of opportunity.
He arrived in Berkeley with barely any money, just enough for some fast food and a few tanks of gas. The Silicon Valley tech boom hadn't fully started yet, and Larry's resume didn't really look that impressive. He had no degrees and only odd jobs on it. So he spent the next 8 years hopping between jobs just to make ends meet. He worked as a technician for companies like Fireman's Fund and Wells Fargo Bank, and eventually as a programmer at Amdahl Corporation. These were humble positions. In one early programming gig, Larry earned only about $400 a month, barely enough to live on. During this period, though, Larry often applied for better programming jobs. He reportedly tried at dozens of tech companies, even NASA, but got rejection letter after rejection letter. Why? Most companies didn't want to hire a college dropout with only a little bit of formal experience. It's a situation that many people fear. You know you have potential, but on paper, you just don't check the right boxes and nobody will give you a chance. Still, Ellison refused to give up on tech. He taught himself the code, staying up late reading technical books and manuals. In fact, Larry never took a single formal computer science class, yet he became a proficient programmer just through self-study. As he later said, "I never took a computer science class in my life. I got a job working as a programmer. I was largely self-taught. I just picked up a book and started programming." This ability to lean into self-learning is one of the key themes of Larry's rise to fame. Even when employers wouldn't give him a chance, he kept improving his skills on his own. And by the mid-1970s, Larry finally landed a solid programming job at a company called Ampex. There, he got to work on a project that would change his life. One of his assignments was building a special database system for the CIA, codenamed Oracle. At Ampex, Larry worked under a talented engineer named Bob Miner, and they were later joined by another colleague, Ed Oates. The three of them often brainstormed about big ideas and even dreamed of starting a company together someday. Building Oracle, the leap of faith. In 1977, Larry Ellison was around 33 years old and decided it was now or never. Time to start that company. He teamed up with Bob Miner and Ed Oates, the colleagues that he trusted, and co-founded a small startup called Software Development Laboratories, SDL. They had almost no money. The total investment was just $2,000, and $1,200 of it came out of Larry's own pockets. In other words, they started Oracle on roughly the price of a secondhand used car. They didn't even have a real office at first, just a tiny space where they squeezed in and coded for long hours. But Larry had a clear vision. He was inspired by a research paper by IBM engineer Edgar F. Codd about a new way to organize data called relational databases. The big established companies like IBM didn't think Codd's ideas had commercial potential, but Larry disagreed. He saw an opportunity to beat the giants at their own game by building a simple, powerful database software based on this relational model. Their first contract as a company was a lucky break. They won a deal to build a database management system for the CIA. The same project Larry had worked on at Ampex, codenamed Oracle. The CIA became Oracle's first customer, giving the tiny startup a critical early revenue stream. Larry and his team worked constantly and finished the project ahead of schedule. And using the spare time, they turned the CIA system into a commercial product that any company could use. They decided to name their product Oracle after the project and eventually even renamed the company Oracle Systems Corporation in 1983. But those early years were anything but easy. Imagine being a small startup trying to sell a complex database system in the late 1970s. Many people thought Larry's ideas were super far-fetched. Critics and potential investors told him things like, databases are too complicated, you'll never sell this, and no one will ever pay money for software like this. Others flat out said, you can't compete with IBM. They're too big. Larry Ellison heard all of this negativity on a regular basis. It's a classic story of a disruptor that nobody believes at first. At one point, Oracle was so small that when they needed to connect their computer terminal to a main system in another room and a wall was in the way, Larry literally smashed the hole through the wall with a hammer to run the cable. He wasn't about to let anything, not even a wall, slow him down. This find a way or make one attitude defined Oracle's culture in the early days. Facing doubt and failure. Despite the doubters, Ellison and his co-founders, they kept pushing forward. They truly believed in their idea when almost no one else did. In 1979, they released the first version of the Oracle database software, and in a fun move, they called it Oracle version 2. There was never a version 1 to give the customers the impression that the product was already mature and tested. The software was good, but convincing companies to try a product from an unknown startup was still a pretty steep uphill battle. The turning point for them came in the early 1980s 1980s. In 1981, the tech giant IBM decided to give Oracle a try for one of its big projects. This was exactly the break Larry had been waiting for. Oracle's databases worked brilliantly for IBM, and seeing Big Blue, which was IBM's nickname, use this little company's product made other businesses take Oracle seriously. After IBM adopted Oracle, the company's sales started doubling every year for 7 years straight. Oracle went from 8 employees in 1980 to hundreds of employees and a public stock offering by 1986. The doubters were proven wrong. Customers would pay for this software, and Oracle could compete with and even help the likes of big companies like IBM. However, success didn't mean smooth sailing. Oracle grew very fast, but it almost collapsed in 1990 due to its own mistakes. The company's young sales team had been so aggressive in booking sales that they started counting deals that hadn't materialized yet, essentially overstating revenues. And when some of those deals fell through, Oracle suddenly had to announce losses and its stock price plummeted. In fact, Oracle's market value dropped about 80%, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. Can you imagine? Larry Ellison, after a decade of grinding to build his dream, nearly saw all of it slip away. That crisis was a huge test for Larry and Oracle, and many thought the company was done for. But Larry refused to quit. He later admitted Oracle had made an incredible business mistake. He responded by completely overhauling the company's management and hiring more experienced executives to straighten things out. Larry also personally doubled down on improving the product. His team released Oracle version 7 in 1992, which became a game changer that put the company back on top. By the mid-1990s, Oracle was not only saved, it was dominating the database market again. Through all these ups and downs, Larry Ellison's intensity and determination never seemed to waver. People who work for him often described him as having this unbelievable drive. His first wife, Ada Quinn, recalled that Larry had incredible intelligence applied with incredible intensity, and that his drive does not let up. That intensity is what carried Oracle through all of these hard times. Triumph at the top. Fast forward to today, and Oracle is a titan of the tech industry. The company that started in a tiny office with 3 people is now a global enterprise software leader worth nearly $922 billion in market value. Oracle's technology is behind thousands of businesses, government agencies, and websites around the world. And Larry Ellison himself, he's now 81 years old and still actively involved in Oracle as the executive chairman and chief technology officer. He's achieved a level of success that few can imagine. In fact, in 2025, Larry briefly became the richest person in the world, even surpassing Elon Musk for a short period, with an estimated net worth of around $393 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. Even if stock prices fluctuate and he's currently the second richest, it's a mind-boggling turnaround for someone who once struggled just to pay rent. With his fortune, Larry Ellison has bought all the toys and trophies that you might expect from a billionaire. He owns 98% of a specific Hawaiian island. He has a fleet of fancy cars and private jets. He has mansions around the world, and even a championship-winning America's Cup sailing team. The kid from the south side of Chicago who mowed lawns for pocket change can now literally own an island and sail his own mega yacht. It's pretty fair to say that he proved his adoptive father wrong. But beyond the luxury, Larry also had become a figure of influence. He stepped down as Oracle CEO in 2014, making room for new leadership, but he continues to help shape the company's direction in technology. He's also a major philanthropist. He gives hundreds of millions to medical research and educational causes. Lessons from Larry's journey. Larry Ellison's rise from poverty and rejection to massive success offers some pretty valuable lessons for anyone with a dream. Number 1, believe in yourself. Larry had this unshakable confidence in his vision, even when other people doubted him. He didn't let those rejections define his self-worth. Next, keep learning and improving. When he couldn't get a formal education in what he loved, he taught himself. That self-education and constant learning were the keys to his later success. Next, persevere through setbacks. Ellison faced personal loss, academic failure, job rejections, and near business bankruptcy. And each time, he chose to get back up again. Psychologists call this quality grit, and research suggests that perseverance can be as crucial to high achievement as talent or IQ. Next, take smart risks. Dropping out of college, moving cross-country, starting the company on a shoestring, those are some pretty bold risks. Larry bet on himself and wasn't afraid to leave the safe path. And lastly, use doubters as motivation. Instead of letting criticism discourage him, Larry used it as motivation. Every "you'll never make it" pushed him to work even harder to prove them wrong. Larry Ellison's story shows that even when money is tight, doors keep closing, and people doubt you, it's possible to climb to the very, very top through daily learning, relentless hard work, and a belief in your vision. He turned obstacles into opportunities at every single step. So, as you reflect on Larry Ellison's journey, think about your own challenges. What would happen if you refused to give up, no matter what the odds? If this self-made billionaire taught us anything, it's that sometimes the greatest successes come from those who don't follow traditional rules, those who carve their own path and persevere when everyone else expects them to fail. Sarah Blakely went from earning $200 as a waitress, selling fax machines door to door, and starting Spanx with just $5,000 to building a company valued at $1.2 billion, making her one of the top self-made female billionaires. Sarah Blakely grew up in Clearwater, Florida, with big dreams of becoming a successful entrepreneur and making a difference in the world. She wanted to create something different that would help people feel better about themselves. Her father, an entrepreneur, always told her the key to success is failing as many times as you can. This idea of embracing failure and learning from it stayed with Sarah as she pursued her goals. After college, Sarah worked as a waitress, earning just $200 a week. Later, she sold fax machines door to door, but she didn't give up on her bigger dream. In 2000, frustrated by the uncomfortable undergarments on the market, she decided to create something better, something that would make women feel confident and comfortable. With just $5,000 in savings, she started Spanx. Sarah faced rejection after rejection, but she never gave up. People told her that it was impossible, that she would never make it. Manufacturers told her, "This is a small market, you'll never compete with the big brands." But Sarah didn't listen. Instead of giving up, she decided to teach herself everything she could. She learned about patents, she researched fabric materials, and she spent hours on the phone with manufacturers until she found one willing to take a chance on her idea. She even created her own prototype and pitched it to retailers herself. Her big break came when she convinced a buyer at Neiman Marcus, a high-end department store known for featuring luxury brands, to stock Spanx. Sarah explained how her product could help women feel more confident and comfortable in their own skin. The product sold out quickly, and soon more and more women wanted to buy it. Today, Spanx is a $1.2 billion brand, and Sarah is one of the youngest self-made female billionaires. From $5,000 to a $1.2 billion company, Sarah's story proves that no matter how small your start is, with determination and belief in yourself, you can turn your dreams into reality.
Embrace failure and redefine it. Sarah Blakely's first big dream fell apart. She wanted to be a lawyer, but I basically bombed the LSAT, she said. Then she drove to Orlando to audition as Goofy at Disney World, only to be 2 inches too short for the role. That rejection hit rock bottom for her. And if it wasn't enough, she took a job selling fax machines and got doors slammed in her face every day. Sarah remembers, people would rip up my business card in my face, a typical occurrence. It was brutal. Most people would have given up on big dreams at that point. But Sarah had a different relationship with failure thanks to her dad. Growing up, her father would actually high-five her for failing. He'd ask at dinner, "What did you fail at this week?" If she had nothing, he'd be disappointed. Weird, right? But it taught her that failure isn't about the outcome at all. It's about not trying. She said failure became about not trying, not the outcome. That mindset shift was everything. It gave her permission to take risks and not fear the no. In fact, hearing no became just part of the process. Selling fax machines door to door trained her resilience. You have to hear no so many times before you actually can get to a yes, Sarah says. Every rejection was making her stronger and bringing her closer to that eventual yes. So ask yourself, do you let the fear of failure stop you from trying? Sarah's story proves that the only real failure is not trying at all. Start embracing those failures as learning reps. Each rejection, each setback is just feedback. It's making you stronger, teaching you something, preparing you for the next move. When you reframe failure this way, you become unstoppable. Sarah often says this lesson from her dad was a real gift, and it's one you can give yourself too. So the next time something doesn't work out, don't shrink back, celebrate the attempt, learn the lesson, and say, next, I'm one step closer to my yes. Start small, solve a real problem. At 27, stuck selling office equipment, Sarah had no background in fashion or business, but she did have an annoying problem. She hated how her pantyhose looked under white pants. One sweltering Florida day, getting dressed for a party, she grabbed scissors and cut the feet off her pantyhose. Suddenly, no seamed toes showing, no underwear lines. Problem solved. That little DIY moment was the birth of Spanx. It seems simple, but think about it. Sarah found $1 billion idea by fixing something in her own life. And here's the crazy part. Sarah actually wrote down this destiny before it happened. 2 years earlier, after a rough day of cold calls, she scribbled in her journal, I'm going to invent a product that I can sell to millions of people that will make them feel good. She had no clue what that product would be, but she set the intention. Talk about thinking big while starting small. She kept selling fax machines for those 2 years, patiently waiting for the idea to strike. And when it did, when she saw her cut-up pantyhose actually worked, she recognized it instantly as the opportunity she'd been waiting for. As she later put it, I ended up writing that goal, and because I had set that intention, I immediately recognized the opportunity. She didn't hesitate. She literally pulled off to the side of the road and said, this is it. This is the idea that I asked for. What can you learn here? First, ideas are everywhere, especially in the everyday annoyances that you face. Sarah's genius wasn't some fancy degree. It was noticing a problem that millions of women had and creating a scrappy solution. She started Spanx with just $5,000 in savings and a single prototype. No investors, no office, no experience. And as she says, I didn't know the first thing about the pantyhose industry. I had never taken a business class. But sometimes not knowing the rules is an advantage. She didn't know what wasn't possible, so she tried what others hadn't. You don't need millions of dollars or a PhD to start. You can start small. Test your idea with whatever you have. Sarah solved a real problem for herself, and it turned out millions of others wanted that solution too. So pay attention to frustrations, yours and other people's. Is there a solution that you can create? It might not make you a billionaire overnight, but it could be a great business idea. Spanx began in an apartment with one homemade prototype. As Sarah put it later, she had a vision of changing the way women feel about themselves, even though she was starting tiny. Dream big, but start with that first step. Don't wait for perfect. Solve a problem that you understand deeply, and you'll be onto something. Be persistent through the no's. So you have a great idea. Now what? For Sarah, the answer was hustle. She had her makeshift prototype and a ton of passion. But remember, no one in the industry took her seriously. Imagine this, 27-year-old Sarah drives to North Carolina alone to visit hosiery mills because that's where pantyhose were made. She starts cold calling factory owners. Hi, I'm Sarah Blakely, and I have an idea for footless pantyhose. You can guess how that went. Every single factory slammed the door on her. They were all run by older men who didn't get it. Sarah says they kept asking, and you're with who? And you're backed by who? She answered, Sarah Blakely and Sarah Blakely. They showed her the door. She got rejected by every manufacturer for weeks. Here's where most people quit, but Sarah kept showing up. She took time off her day job, drove from plant to plant with her lucky red backpack, and refused to let the no's crush her spirit. Finally, 2 weeks after returning home defeated, she got a phone call. One mill owner had mentioned Sarah's idea to his daughters at dinner. His teenage daughters told him, Dad, this idea is genius. Help that girl. He changed his mind and agreed to manufacture Spanx. Her persistence paid off. It only happened because she knocked on every door and didn't quit when it looked bleak. Even after she had a product, more rejection awaited. Sarah needed to get Spanx into stores. She managed to get a meeting with a buyer at Neiman Marcus, a big luxury department store. Now, Sarah is a born saleswoman. She knew she had to do something dramatic to stand out. In the middle of the meeting, she could tell she was losing the buyer's attention. So she literally took the woman to the ladies' restroom, changed into her Spanx undergarment right there, and modeled the product under white pants. The buyer could see how well it worked and say, yes, we'll try it. That's how Spanx first got on shelves. One store, Neiman Marcus, in 7 locations. After that, Bloomingdale's, Saks, and other stores followed suit. But the big break almost every entrepreneur dreams of came in 2000. Oprah Winfrey discovered Spanx and loved it. Oprah put Spanx on her famous favorite things list. Sales exploded. Sarah said that being chosen by Oprah was an awesome, validating moment. In fact, Spanx did $4 million in sales in its first year and hit $10 million the next year. Sarah could barely keep up with demand and finally quit her day job selling fax machines. All those no's turned into one huge yes, and it only happened because Sarah refused to give up. The lesson? Persistence is everything. Every entrepreneur hears no. Maybe you're hearing a lot of them right now. Investors not interested, customers not buying yet. Remember Sarah. She heard hundreds of no's from managers to manufacturers to buyers. She just kept going to the next door, the next phone call, the next tactic. Use rejection as your fuel. Each no is data. It means try another angle, improve your pitch, or knock on a different door. Sarah likes to say, every no is one step closer to a yes. It's not just a comforting quote. She lived it, and so can you. Be relentless. If you believe in your idea, keep pitching it until someone gives you a chance. The road to success is paved with rejections, but every rejection is also a stepping stone to that life-changing yes. Believe in your idea, even if others don't. One of the most powerful parts of Sarah's story is how much she trusted her own gut, even when she had zero credentials in the field. She didn't run around seeking for other people's approval or permission. In fact, Sarah kept her billion-dollar idea secret for a whole year while she developed it. Why? She later explained that she didn't want other people's doubts or negativity to cloud her vision in the vulnerable early stages. This is such a smart move. Sometimes your well-meaning friends or colleagues will say, "Are you sure? Sounds too risky." And they inadvertently talk you out of a great idea. Sarah avoided that trap by believing in herself first. She sought feedback selectively once she had a prototype and momentum, not at the daydream stage. It also helped that Sarah approached business with fresh eyes. Yes, she had no experience in fashion or retail or manufacturing, but she saw that as a plus. She said, what you don't know can become your greatest asset if you let it. Because she wasn't an insider, she came up with a product that all the insiders had missed. The industry veterans weren't trying to reinvent pantyhose. They thought they knew it all. Sarah, not knowing what couldn't be done, went ahead and did it differently. For example, she insisted on a totally unique packaging for Spanx, bright red, bold, and fun, and positioned it in stores next to shoes instead of the lingerie section. The established companies thought she was crazy. It turned out to be a brilliant way to reach women who didn't even know they needed her product yet. Sometimes, not having prior experience means you're not biased by the way things are supposed to be. Sarah encourages entrepreneurs to use their inexperience as a competitive advantage. Rather than thinking, I'm not qualified, who am I to do this? Flip it. Because you're new, you can approach problems with a fresh perspective and boldness that seasoned folks might lack. Your belief in your idea has to be unshakable, especially in the beginning. When every expert told Sarah, no one will buy footless pantyhose, she trusted the feedback that did matter, her own experience. She wanted the product and the reactions of real women that she talked to. In Spanx's early days, she personally went to stores doing demonstrations and asked customers for their input. She stayed close to the product and the people it served, not the naysayers. So if you have an idea burning inside you, protect it from premature negativity. Nurture it. Do your homework like Sarah did. She spent 2 years patenting and prototyping in the evenings. But don't let a lack of credentials stop you. As Sarah's story shows, innovation often comes from outsiders. Believe that you might see what everyone else missed. And remember her advice. What you don't know can be your biggest asset. Keep that beginner's mind and trust your gut. Build a mindset for growth. Building a billion-dollar company isn't just about what you do, it's about how you think. Sarah Blakely is a huge believer that mindset and attitude are the X factors in entrepreneurship. Long before Spanx made it big, she was already training her mind for success. How? By feeding it daily with positivity, knowledge, and vision. When she was trudging door to door in that sales job, getting rejected left and right, Sarah did something that I absolutely love. She turned her car into a mobile classroom of motivation. She says, I used to play Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy tapes on repeat in my car in high school and college. No one ever wanted to ride home with me. While other people were cranking music, Sarah was literally reprogramming her brain with optimism and resilience. Those mentors from afar kept her spirits up for the next cold call. If she got kicked out of an office, she'd get back in her car and listen to something empowering to get into the right mindset for the next one. This habit was crucial. It meant that even though she was alone in a tough job, she wasn't really alone. She had virtual mentors coaching her every day. Sarah also constantly pushed herself out of her comfort zone. Did you know she even did stand-up comedy at night during her fax selling years? She admits it terrified her, and that's exactly why she did it. She was training herself to do hard things and face fear head on. Little habits like that build tremendous confidence. So by the time she started Spanx, she'd already walked on metaphor metaphorical hot coals. In fact, Sarah later attended seminars like Tony Robbins, where she literally walked on coals and dug into personal development. All of that work on herself created a mindset where she expected success and wasn't afraid of challenges. So think about your own mindset and habits. Are you surrounding yourself with positivity and growth like Sarah did, or are you letting fear and doubt run the show? Here's a huge insight from Sarah. She says you must connect to a purpose bigger than yourself. In a recent event with Tony Robbins, Sarah got emotional talking about the power of knowing your why. She said when you know why you're doing something, when it serves others or fulfills a big mission, you'll find the courage you never knew you had. For her, Spanx was about helping women feel confident. That purpose pulled her through the low points. So find your why. Why does your business or idea matter to you and to the world? When the purpose is clear, the grit comes naturally. Also, celebrate your wins, big and small. Sarah talks about how she bought herself a cheap $75 purse to celebrate the first time she saw Spanx on a store shelf. She marked the moment. You better believe that reinforced her motivation to go get the next win. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, so intentionally focusing on progress keeps you in the game. The bottom line is that success is an inside job first. You have to program your mind for resilience, confidence, and optimism daily. Read inspiring books, watch videos, and hey, you're doing it right now. Surround yourself physically or virtually with the people who uplift you. Sarah did it with cassette tapes and seminars. You have even more access today with YouTube and podcasts and different online communities. There's no excuse not to flood your brain with the good stuff. This is how you build an environment and habit of greatness, and you're already on the right track. By watching content like this, you're feeding your mind the same way that Sarah did. Keep doing that consistently, and you'll develop the mindset muscle to match your hustle. Your turn. Take the leap. Sarah Blakely's journey from failed salesperson to billionaire inventor is proof that you don't need to have all the answers to start. You don't need permission. You just need an idea you care about and the courage to keep going. Sarah likes to say she lives an entrepreneur life, which to her means with the right mindset, you can live a life much bigger than you ever imagined. I want you to remember that. The next time you get a crazy idea or face a setback, think of Sarah. Cutting up pantyhose on her apartment floor, hearing her 100th no, driving around with motivational tapes blasting, chasing a vision no one else could see. That's the spirit of an entrepreneur. It's scrappy, bold, and a little bit weird, and it wins. So what idea are you sitting on? And what are you going to do about it? Maybe it's not fully formed yet. That's okay. Write it down like Sarah did. Start somewhere. Make a prototype in your living room. Try selling to one customer. Expect that you'll fail and mess up and hear no a bunch. It's all part of the journey. But also know this. Every time you face a fear or overcome an obstacle, you grow. You become the kind of person who can achieve those crazy big goals. I'm willing to bet that your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of one of those failures that you've been afraid of. So don't be afraid to embarrass yourself a little. Don't be afraid to knock on doors, even if they slam in your face. Every attempt is getting you closer. And hey, look at you here right now, learning, improving, investing in yourself. This is what winners do. I'm proud of you for showing up and feeding your mind with something positive and productive today. Not everyone has the dedication to do that. Every video, every book, every action you take to better yourself and your business is compounding inside you. Soichiro Honda, the founder of Honda Motors, was rejected by Toyota, lost his factory in World War II, and had an earthquake destroy everything he built. He was broke, humiliated, and at rock bottom. But instead of giving up, he turned failure into the fuel for his greatest success. Honda was obsessed with engines. As a young man, he spent years designing a new piston, believing it would change the industry. He took his invention to Toyota, expecting them to buy it, but they rejected him, saying it wasn't good enough. Most people would have quit, but Honda went back, redesigned it, and tried again. Toyota rejected him a second time. He was crushed. He had put everything into this project, and now he had nothing to show for it. Still, he refused to quit. He borrowed money, built a factory, and started producing his own parts. Just when things were finally looking up, World War II hit. His factory was bombed twice. All his hard work gone. But he rebuilt. Then before he could recover, a massive earthquake struck and leveled everything he had left. Honda was left with nothing. No factory, no money, no hope. But instead of feeling sorry for himself, he found a new way forward. With Japan struggling after the war, people needed cheap transportation. He took a simple bicycle and attached a tiny motor to it. That small idea, it changed everything. People loved it.
He started making more. Soon his little motorized bikes were selling all over Japan. That business became Honda Motors, which grew into the biggest motorcycle company in the world and later one of the most successful car manufacturers in history. Soichiro Honda was rejected, bankrupt, and lost everything, but he never stopped. If he had quit, there would be no Honda today. When life knocks you down, will you stay down or will you rise up and build something even greater? You could say Soichiro Honda was born with grease under his nails. He entered the world in 1906 in a tiny Japanese village, the son of a blacksmith who also fixed bicycles. As a child, Soichiro helped his father's bike repair shop, mesmerized by gears and spokes instead of school books. In fact, he wasn't much for traditional education. He once forged his family seal out of a rubber bicycle pedal to fake his report card approval. It worked for Honda since his name was symmetrical, but not for his friends with different names. That little mischief got him caught, but it shows you something. Even as a kid, Soichiro was resourceful and bold, unafraid to hack the system to get what he wanted. What he wanted most was machines. As a toddler, he saw his first automobile roll through his village and he was spellbound. He said the oil smelled like perfume to him. He even borrowed his dad's bicycle to chase an airplane demonstration once. He was obsessed with anything mechanical. If you've ever felt that burning passion for something at a young age, you know how Soichiro felt. And if you haven't found your passion yet, take a cue from him. Follow your curiosity relentlessly. At 15 years old, armed with nothing but that passion, Soichiro left his village and headed to Tokyo to find work as a mechanic. Imagine a teenager with no formal education, no money, just a dream to work with cars. He saw an ad for a job at an auto shop called Art Shokai and wrote them a letter asking for an apprenticeship, even though they weren't advertising for one. Who does that? Someone hungry to learn. And it worked. They took him on. So ask yourself, would you have the guts to cold call your way into an opportunity? Honda did. That bold move at 15 set the foundation for everything to come. At Art Shokai in the 1920s, Soichiro thrived. He swept floors and fetched tools at first, but he soaked up knowledge like a sponge. He became a skilled mechanic known for clever fixes and crazy work ethic. His boss, Yuzo Sakakibara, was so impressed that he let young Honda help build a racing car from scratch. And get this, Soichiro built a race car with a salvaged engine that broke the speed record in Japan at the time, over 100 miles per hour. He even drove it in a race. That fearless need for speed was already in his blood. Unfortunately, in 1936, he crashed in a race and nearly died, injuring his eye. That crash ended his driving days, but not his racing spirit. We'll see how racing comes back into his story later on. By his early 30s, Soichiro Honda had learned all he could at the garage. He had a vision. He wanted to start his own company and make his own products. How many 30-year-olds do you know with the confidence to start a manufacturing business from scratch? This is where his real entrepreneurial journey kicks off. And trust me, it almost ended as soon as it began. In 1937, Soichiro Honda took the leap. He invested all of his savings, about $3,200, into a small factory to mass-produce piston rings, which were a critical engine part. He was betting everything on his ability to make a tiny piece of metal better than anyone else. His plan was to sell these piston rings to Toyota, the big car company. It did not go as planned. In fact, it was a disaster. After months of work, he delivered his first batch of piston rings to Toyota, and they rejected almost all of them. Imagine the moment. You've poured your heart, your soul, your life savings into a product, and the customer says, "These are junk." Out of 50 rings, only 3 met Toyota's quality standard. Another account says he made thousands of rings and only a few dozen were usable. Either way, almost 90 to 99% of his work was a failure. Can you imagine how crushing that could be? Honda was heartbroken and humiliated. He literally lost a Toyota contract, and with it, his hopes for a successful business seemed to crumble. Now, most people at this point would quit. They'd say, well, I tried, I failed, time to find a stable job. And here's where Soichiro Honda shows the mindset that you as an entrepreneur need to have. He refused to give up. Instead of quitting, he decided to learn from the failure and come back stronger. Remember this the next time you fail. Success represents the 1% of your work, which results from the 99% that is called failure. Soichiro Honda said that, and he lived it. He understood that each failure was telling him something. In this case, it told him he needed more knowledge. So he went back to school,
literally. Honda enrolled in a technical school to study metallurgy, the science of metals, so he could figure out why his piston rings were too brittle or too soft. By day, he ran his little factory. By night, he was hitting the books. For 2 years, he experimented, studied, and improved the manufacturing process. And it paid off. By 1939, he had mastered the process and his piston rings were finally good enough. Toyota gave him a contract and his factory began supplying piston rings not only to Toyota, but also to the Japanese military for aircraft. His business, Tokai Seiki, grew to employ over 2,000 workers at its peak. Think about that. He went from catastrophic failure to running a 2,000 employee company because he didn't quit. He treated failure as feedback, not finale. This is failing forward in action. What can you learn from here? Persistence. The science backs it up. Research from the University of Pennsylvania shows that grit, passion, and perseverance is a better predictor of success than talent or IQ. Soichiro Honda's grit pulled him through. He literally turned failure into fuel. He once said, "Instead of being afraid of the challenge and failure, be afraid of avoiding the challenge and doing nothing." In other words, the only real failure is not trying. Soichiro's piston ring venture finally found success, but just as things were looking up, the world turned upside down. War broke out. Soichiro Honda's company was humming along, supplying Toyota and others, but then World War II escalated. Japan was drawn into war, and by 1944, Soichiro's factory became a target. Bombs rained down, and an American B-29 air raid leveled his main plant to rubble. If that wasn't enough, in 1945, a massive earthquake struck Japan and destroyed his second factory. In less than a year, everything he'd built, years of effort, all that persistence, was reduced to smoking ruins and twisted metal. Imagine standing in front of your business, the place you poured your sweat and blood into, and seeing it literally collapse in a pile. How would you feel? Most of us would be devastated. Soichiro Honda certainly was in shock. He later said he had no interest in rebuilding the piston ring business for a third time. And can you blame him? He'd been through failure, recovery, success, then utter destruction. This was rock bottom. So what did he do? He didn't immediately jump back into entrepreneurship. In fact, Honda sold the salvageable remains of his factory to Toyota for 450,000 yen, just to have something to start anew. Then he took a break. A really long break by his standards. He spent a year basically in reflection and recuperation. He even went back to college for a bit and studied engineering more, though he never did get a formal degree. Soichiro was now an engineer without a company, without a degree, and nearly without hope. But this wasn't where the story ends, because remember, the day you stop dreaming is the day you die. And Soichiro Honda was not done dreaming. His homeland Japan was also in ruins from the war, and in those ruins, new opportunities were emerging. Necessity is the mother of invention, and Japan needed inventions. The people needed basic transportation to rebuild their lives in a shattered economy. Soichiro saw this need, and once again, he had a crazy idea. It's 1946. Japan is in chaos. Fuel is scarce, money is tight. People are literally rebuilding buildings and lives. Soichiro Honda, now 40 years old, is back in his hometown, figuring out his next move. One day he stumbles on a small 2-stroke engine, a tiny surplus military generator motor left from the war, just lying around. Most folks would see a hunk of junk. Soichiro saw opportunity. He famously recalled that moment as a moment of destiny, the spark that would ignite Honda Motor Company. He thought, what if I attach this little engine to a bicycle? People had been tinkering with motorized bikes elsewhere, but in Japan it wasn't common. With gas in short supply, an efficient motorbike could be the perfect solution for easy transport. Soichiro got to work in his shack. He strapped the engine to a bicycle, used a hot water bottle as a makeshift fuel tank, seriously, and rigged a way to drive the wheel. The first prototype shook and rattled, but it worked. He gave it to his wife, Sachi, to test. She became the first test rider, putting up with oil splattering her clothes as she rode around town. People on the street must have thought they were seeing things. A woman cruising by without pedaling. And that was exactly Soichiro's plan. It got people talking. The little motorbike was loud, rough, and imperfect, but to war-weary citizens, it looked like freedom. Honda improved the design, and after his wife's feedback about the oil mess, and began building more. He had limited engines, about 500 of those surplus motors, so he refurbished every single one by hand before mounting it on a bicycle to sell. He refused to put out a shoddy product with his name on it. Even in desperate times, quality was king for him. That's a lesson. Your reputation is built on the quality you deliver, even when resources are scarce. Soon word spread about these motorized bicycles. They were cheap to run and helped people get around quickly. Buyers came from all over Japan to his hometown to get one. Soichiro Honda was back in business, not with piston rings this time, but with a whole new product born of necessity and imagination. By late 1946, Soichiro had officially founded the Honda Technical Research Institute, working out of a little wooden shack with a team of about a dozen men and a dream. That institute title is pretty grand for what basically was a glorified garage lab with an oil-stained floor. They worked day and night on improving a motorized bicycle. When the supply of surplus engines ran out, Honda knew they had to make their own engines to keep going. So in 1947, they developed a new 50cc engine, their first original Honda engine, and mounted it on a bicycle frame. This evolved into a complete motorbike known as the Type A, nicknamed the Bada Bada for the sound it made. It wasn't long before Honda's bikes were in demand across Japan. In 1948, just 2 years after starting from zero, Soichiro took the next big step. He incorporated Honda Motor Corporation as an official company. He knew he needed help to really grow, so he partnered with Takeo Fujisawa, a savvy businessman who joined him in 1949. This was crucial. Fujisawa handled the financial and marketing side, while Soichiro focused on engineering and production. Teamwork and knowing your strengths. This is another key entrepreneurial lesson. Honda was an engineering genius, but admittedly hated dealing with accounting. His wife would poke him about unpaid bills. By bringing in a partner who excelled in business, he freed himself to do what he loved most: innovate. So ask yourself, do you need a Fujisawa in your venture to complement your skills? With a solid team and a growing reputation, Honda Motor Co. took off. Soichiro and his engineers kept innovating new models. In 1949, they released the Type D Dream, Honda's first true motorcycle, complete with a sleek frame and 98cc engine. The name Dream says it all. It was Soichiro's dream becoming reality. But it wasn't easy. Post-war Japan was crawling with competition. About 200 other small companies were also making motorized bikes, all scrambling for a piece of a very poor market. Honda was just one player in a crowded field, an underdog by any measure. So how did Honda break away from the pack? Two things: product quality and smart strategy. Soichiro's engineering prowess meant his bikes steadily improved. They were reliable and got better each year. But equally important, Takeo Fujisawa helped craft brilliant marketing and distribution. They didn't just build good motorcycles, they found better ways to sell them. For example, by the mid-1950s, Honda's bikes had such a good reputation that word-of-mouth demand was exploding. Fujisawa organized a novel distribution system where Honda salesmen literally drove trucks of bikes from town to town across Japan, personally demoing and delivering to local dealers. They went to the customers rather than waiting in Tokyo. This boots-on-the-ground approach built relationships and trust. It was unconventional, but it worked. By 1955, just 7 years after starting, Honda became the #1 motorcycle manufacturer in Japan, leaving hundreds of rivals in the dust. Soichiro wasn't content with just domestic success. He had a bigger vision: to be a world-class manufacturer. He believed that to truly test your product, you should face the world's best on the racetrack. Remember that racing bug he had? It never went away. He famously said, "If Honda does not race, there is no Honda." Racing was a way to push the limits of technology and prove your mettle. So in 1959, Honda became the first Japanese motorcycle maker to enter the legendary Isle of Man TT race, the toughest, most dangerous motorcycle race in the world at the time. They didn't win that year. In fact, they faced several technical failures in early attempts. But Honda's team learned and improved. By 1961, they took home their first trophies in the World Grand Prix circuit, shocking the established European makers. This relentless drive to compete and improve quickly translated into superior bikes for customers. By the early 1960s, Honda had begun exporting worldwide, and riders from Asia to Europe to America loved the affordable, robust Hondas. The real breakthrough in the West came with one iconic model, the Honda Super Cub. Introduced in 1958 as a simple 50cc bike for everyone, it became a global phenomenon. You probably know it by the later US slogan, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda." The Super Cub was cheap, reliable, and ridiculously fuel efficient, perfect for the post-war boom in affordable transport. It was so successful that it eventually became the most produced motor vehicle in history, with over 100 million Super Cubs built worldwide. Yes, 100 million. More than the Model T, more than the VW Beetle, any of them. That's the power of a great product combined with a great vision. Soichiro Honda wanted to empower ordinary people with mobility, and that vision drove the creation of a product that truly conquered the world. By 1959, Honda opened its first dealership in the United States, entering a market dominated by big bikes like Harley-Davidson. The American riders initially saw small Japanese bikes as a joke, but Honda's clever marketing, the Nicest People campaign in 1963, changed that image fast. Sales skyrocketed, and then an incredible thing happened. Honda motorcycles started outselling even the venerable Harley-Davidson in America and Triumph in England, beating the homegrown brands in their own backyards. Think about the magnitude of that. A little company from a war-torn country, a total underdog, overtook established giants on their home turf. By the mid-1960s, Honda was the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer and a household name. Soichiro Honda had gone global. How? By never sacrificing quality, by innovating in products and marketing, and by daring to go where others hadn't. He didn't stop at small bikes or local markets. He kept pushing outward. And as his motorcycle business reached the pinnacle, he set his sights on an even bigger dream, one that many thought was downright crazy: cars. Most people would ride the high of being the world's top motorcycle maker and play it safe. Not Soichiro Honda. In the late 1950s, as his bikes were conquering roads worldwide, he had another vision. He loved cars. Remember, he'd built and raced them in his youth, and he wanted Honda to build cars too. But Japan's government wasn't keen on a small motorcycle company jumping into the car industry. In fact, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry in Japan tried to block Honda from making cars in the early 1960s. They had a plan to consolidate the auto industry and didn't want new entrants. They effectively told Honda, stick to what you're good at, don't pursue cars. Well, telling Soichiro Honda to not do something was the surest way to fire him up. He once quipped, if our team had to run a business analysis, we would never have ventured into the car business. I simply made a list of the weaknesses of the world's biggest car makers, and that list was quite long. In other words, he didn't care what the conventional wisdom was or what the government said. He saw an opportunity to do better than the existing car companies, and he went for it. The lesson is don't let naysayers or expert analysis kill your dream if you truly believe and have done your homework. Sometimes vision is greater than permission. Blocked from immediately entering the car market, Honda took a clever detour: racing. He decided to prove Honda's engineering prowess on the world stage by entering Formula One racing, the pinnacle of car racing. A bold move for a company that hadn't mass-produced a single car yet. They built a racing car, and by 1965, just a few years later, Honda won the Formula One Grand Prix in Mexico, beating the likes of Ferrari and Lotus. The racing success silenced a lot of doubters. It demonstrated that Honda's technology could compete with the best in the world. Over the next few years, they also dominated in Formula 2 racing with 11 consecutive wins. Soichiro was showing the world, we know engines, we know cars, and we're coming. By the late 1960s, Honda got the green light to mass-produce cars. Soichiro's first production car models, like the tiny Honda N360 and the sporty S600, hit the market. They were different from the big American sedans or even the established Japanese models. They were small, efficient, and fun. But the real jackpot came in 1972 with the launch of the Honda Civic. Soichiro's team had developed an ingenious new engine technology called CVCC, Compound Vortex Controlled Combustion, which made the Civic meet the strict US emission standards of the 1970s without a catalytic converter. While Detroit's giants were struggling to make clean engines to comply with the Clean Air Act, little Honda had cracked the code. The Civic got great gas mileage just as the world faced the oil crisis, and it ran clean. It was the right car at the right time. The Civic became a massive hit globally. In America, its sales took off like a rocket, even becoming the #1 selling car in the US at one point in the small car category. Honda suddenly went from newcomer to a major player in automobiles. By 1973, just 25 years after its founding, Honda Motor Co. was so successful internationally that they decided to open a production plant in the United States, a nearly unthinkable move for a Japanese company back then. Think about the irony.
The same country that bombed Soichiro's factory to smithereens in World War II was now welcoming his company to build cars on their soil because Americans loved his products. Soichiro Honda retired in 1973 as president of Honda on the 25th anniversary of the company. He stepped down at the top, with Honda firmly established as a global automotive and motorcycle powerhouse. People magazine later called him the Japanese Henry Ford. But in truth, he was one of a kind. In his lifetime, he saw his company grow from a tiny shack to a multi-billion-dollar multinational. More importantly for him, he saw ideas that once lived only in his head, the cheap motorbike, the small car that could beat the big guys, become reality for millions of customers. Even after retirement, Soichiro stayed on as a supreme advisor and kept tinkering in workshops until his final days. He pursued hobbies like hang gliding and painting, living life with the same zeal he brought to business. He never stopped moving, never stopped dreaming, right up until he passed away in 1991, leaving a legacy that's visible every time you see a Honda logo. So what can you take away from this incredible journey? Let's break down the key lessons from Soichiro Honda's life that you can apply to your own entrepreneurial path. Number 1, persistence in the face of failure. Soichiro Honda failed hard and often. His first factory output was 90% unusable. His plants were bombed to rubble, yet he never saw failure as the end. He saw it as a lesson. Remember his words, success is 99% failure. Every setback was just one step closer to getting it right. When you hit a wall, don't turn around. Climb over it or break through it. Most businesses face early failures. About 50% of startups fail within 5 years. But the ones that succeed are the ones that keep going after failure. Take Honda's story to heart and let your failures refine you, not define you. Number 2, embrace rejection and prove the doubters wrong. Honda was rejected time and time again by Toyota's inspectors, by bankers, even by government officials who told him to stay out of cars. Instead of internalizing rejection, he used it as fuel. You will face naysayers, investors who don't bite, customers who choose a competitor, friends or family who think you're crazy. Don't let their no stop you. Let it light a fire under you. As Honda said, instead of being afraid of the challenge and failure, be afraid of avoiding the challenge and doing nothing. The only sure way to fail is not to try. Soichiro Honda pawned his wife's jewelry to keep his dream alive during tough times. That's how all in he was. Believe in yourself enough to stick with your vision even when others don't. Number 3, innovate and play to your strengths. Honda was an inventor at heart. From forging stamps as a kid to creating new engine designs as an adult, he was obsessed with innovation and doing things differently. When he couldn't get good piston metal, he learned metallurgy. When fuel was scarce, he repurposed a radio engine for a bicycle. When big car companies were complacent, he out-engineered them with a CVCC engine. The lesson? Be a problem solver and think outside the box. Innovation is your edge. Also know your strengths and lean into them. Honda knew he was great with engineering but not finance, so he partnered with Fujisawa to handle the business side. As a result, the company had the best of both worlds. Build a team that complements your skills. You don't have to do it all alone. Number 4, quality and customer focus create luck. Honda had an unwavering commitment to quality and understanding the customer's needs. He personally rebuilt engines to ensure they wouldn't fail on his early customers. He listened to feedback, even from his wife's first test ride, and made improvements. He also understood the market. Post-war consumers needed affordable, efficient vehicles, so that's what he made. By meeting real needs and making truly great products, Honda got lucky in the market. But it wasn't luck, it was insight and dedication. Focus on delivering value and opportunities will find you. Honda's Super Cub didn't become the world's best-selling motorbike by accident. It earned that status by genuinely solving problems for millions of people. Number 5, stay humble and keep learning. Despite his success, Soichiro Honda never became an aloof executive. He wore the same white work overalls as any factory worker because he believed in equality and keeping hands-on. He was known to walk the factory floor, getting his hands dirty, and kept learning new things even into old age. He learned to fly planes in his 70s. This attitude built loyalty in his team and kept him in touch with reality. The takeaway? Never think any task is below you and never stop learning. Industries evolve, and the moment you think you know it all, you're done. Honda's lifelong learner mindset allowed him to pivot from bikes to cars to whatever came next. Be curious, be humble, and surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow.
Each of these lessons come back to a core idea. Success is a mindset before it's a reality. Soichiro Honda's story is extraordinary, but it's not just luck or genius. It's attitude, resilience, and vision. And those are things you can cultivate in your own journey. So now what's stopping you from achieving your dream? Maybe you've had failures. Maybe you're in the middle of one right now. Maybe people are telling you no, it'll never work, or stick to what you know. I want you to think about Soichiro Honda, a poor blacksmith's son with no degree who blew his first big chance spectacularly, saw his factories reduced to ashes, and still came back to create one of the most successful companies on the planet. He didn't let failure stop him. He let it sculpt him. Every time life said, give up, he said, what's the next step? He kept his vision in focus, whether it was a piston ring, a motorbike for the masses, or a car that could change the world. And he did change the world. One invention, one race, one bike, one car at a time. Honda's journey teaches us that the only real limit is how much you're willing to endure and learn on the road to your goal. As an entrepreneur, your mindset is your greatest asset. Fall in love with the problem you're solving. Take pride in your work. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And when things inevitably go wrong, remember Soichiro Honda standing in the rubble of his dreams, deciding that this was not the end, but the beginning of something new. So now it's your turn. Take that leap, embrace the challenges. When you fail, laugh, learn, and get back up. Dare to dream like Honda did and work like heck to make it real. Your journey will have bumps. That's okay. Every failure is just another step closer to success if you keep moving. Soichiro Honda believed in the power of dreams and persistence, and he proved that one person with a dream can impact millions. You have that power too. So go on, write your own story of persistence, innovation, and impact. And whenever you feel that doubt creeping in, remember this. The guy whose name is on millions of engines worldwide started with less than you have right now. If he could do it, why not you? Keep pushing forward, turn your failures into fuel, and never stop dreaming. Believe. Fred Smith had an idea in college, a system to deliver packages overnight. His professor gave him a C and said it would never work. But Fred believed in his vision. He started FedEx, bought a fleet of planes, and put everything on the line. Then it almost collapsed. He was down to his last $5,000. Here's where it gets crazy. Fred took that $5,000, flew to Vegas, and gambled it all on blackjack. He walked out with $27,000, just enough to keep FedEx alive. That gamble paid off. Today, FedEx delivers over 15 million packages a day and is worth billions, all because Fred didn't quit when things got tough. Fred's story proves this: bet on yourself, even when no one else will. The college vision that earned the C. In 1965, a Yale undergraduate named Fred Smith had a bold idea for revolutionizing shipping. For an economics class, he wrote a term paper proposing a fast, integrated air-ground delivery network that could transport packages overnight anywhere in the country. His concept was essentially a hub-and-spoke system. One carrier would handle a package from pickup to final delivery, flying shipments to a central hub for sorting, and then sending them out to their destinations by air and truck. It was a radical idea at the time, so radical that according to legend, Smith's professor was unimpressed. The story goes that the paper received an average grade, a C, with the professor deeming the idea infeasible. Smith later said he didn't actually recall the exact grade, joking it was probably a C. But one thing was clear, his vision was met with skepticism, yet Fred Smith refused to discard his dream simply because others doubted it. This C-grade idea, doubted in the classroom, would soon launch an entirely new industry. From Vietnam to the birth of FedEx. Fred Smith's determination only grew after college. He served as a U.S. Marine Corps officer in Vietnam from 1966 to 1969, earning honors like the Silver Star and Purple Heart. Smith later credited the Marines with instilling in him the leadership and discipline needed to start a business, stating, "I do not believe I could have built FedEx without the skills I learned from the Marine Corps." His military experience taught him to stay calm under pressure and to strategize, qualities that would prove vital in his entrepreneurial journey. In 1971, a few years after returning from Vietnam, Fred Smith decided to put his Yale term paper plan into action. Using $4 million of his own inheritance and raising about $80 to $91 million in venture capital and loans, he founded Federal Express Corporation, FedEx, in Little Rock, Arkansas. Why Federal Express? Smith thought the name sounded like it served the whole country and might even appeal to the Federal Reserve, who were one of his target clients. Not long after, he moved the operation to Memphis, Tennessee, which offered a centrally located airport with favorable weather and plenty of hangar space. FedEx officially began operations on April 17, 1973. On that inaugural night, 14 small aircraft carried 186 packages to 25 U.S. cities. It was a modest start, but a proof of concept. Fred's overnight delivery network was finally real. In fact, the very first FedEx plane fleet consisted of Falcon 20 jets, one of which Smith affectionately named Wendy after his daughter. From the outset, FedEx marketed itself as an airline for packages only, highlighting its singular focus on speedy parcel delivery. In the early days, FedEx handled the entire journey of a package, from pickup by courier van to sorting at a central hub to transport via FedEx aircraft, a revolutionary integrated approach. Despite excitement around the idea, FedEx's early years were fraught with challenges. Building a national delivery network from scratch was enormously expensive. By 1973, 1974, the company was losing up to $1 million per month and burning through its capital. The 1970 oil crisis sent fuel prices soaring, which hit the young airline hard. FedEx had only a handful of planes and vans, but keeping them running was eating up cash. Smith had mortgaged everything and sold some of his family assets to keep FedEx afloat. Still, by 1974, FedEx was on the brink of bankruptcy, struggling to pay bills and salaries. Early struggles. FedEx on the brink. Fred Smith's fledgling company nearly went under before it truly got going. In the first 2 years, rising fuel costs and operating expenses drove FedEx millions of dollars into debt. Smith had made ambitious growth plans, adding more cities and more planes each month, but the costs were outpacing revenue. By 1974, FedEx was in crisis mode. The company had dwindled to just $5,000 in the bank, barely enough to fuel its planes for a few days of operation. Desperate to raise funds, Smith pitched investors and even defense contractors General Dynamics for an infusion of capital, but he was turned down repeatedly. One rejection at a General Dynamics board meeting would set the stage for a legendary gamble, as we'll see shortly. FedEx had already taken extreme measures to stay alive. Pilots paid for fuel with personal credit cards, and some employees' paychecks went uncashed, all to keep the planes flying a little bit longer. These sacrifices underscore how much Fred and his team believed in the mission, but belief alone couldn't buy jet fuel. By mid-1974, bankruptcy was a very real possibility. Payroll was due, fuel suppliers were awaiting payment of a $24,000 fuel bill, and no new funding was in sight. It was during this low point that Fred Smith decided to take a truly unconventional step, one that would either buy FedEx a little more time or end the dream entirely. The Las Vegas gamble. With FedEx's last $5,000 literally in his hand, Fred Smith made a now legendary gamble. After being rejected by General Dynamics, he was stuck in Chicago's airport trying to get home to Memphis. Instead of flying back defeated, Smith impulsively flew to Las Vegas. His plan? Bet FedEx's remaining funds at the blackjack tables. A bold, some would say crazy, attempt to win money to pay the company's fuel bill. It was a do-or-die moment. At a Las Vegas casino, Smith put the fate of his company on the line with the flip of cards. In an astonishing turn of events, he turned that $5,000 into $27,000 by the time he left the blackjack table. This was enough to cover FedEx's $24,000 fuel bill and keep the planes running for at least one more week. When Roger Kroc, FedEx's operations chief, learned what Smith had done, he was stunned. "You mean you took our last $5,000? How could you do that?" Kroc asked. Smith shrugged and famously replied, "What difference does it make? Without the funds for the fuel, we couldn't have flown anyway." In other words, if FedEx was going down, he had nothing left to lose by betting it all. Smith later joked that no MBA would recommend gambling as a financing strategy. But in this case, sometimes it pays to be a little crazy early in your career. That infusion of $27,000 was not a permanent fix to FedEx's problems. It bought mere days of operation, but it proved to be the omen and spark of hope that Fred Smith needed. With renewed determination, he used that time to seek out new investors. Smith told his team that if we're going to go down, we were going to go down fighting. He refused to quit when so many employees and partners had put their faith in him. And his tenacity paid off. Not long after the Vegas trip, Smith convinced investors to inject another $11 million in capital, providing a much-needed lifeline for him. By 1976, FedEx was on more stable footing and turned its first profit of $3.6 million. Fred Smith's crazy gamble has since become a bit of Silicon Valley lore, an example of extreme commitment to one's vision. Had that weekend in Las Vegas gone differently, FedEx might not exist today. But fortune favored Smith's audacity. The win gave FedEx a second chance, and Fred made sure to capitalize on it. Turning point and rapid growth. After surviving the 1970 scare, FedEx began to soar. With new funding in hand, Smith and his team aggressively expanded the business. They launched a direct mail advertising campaign to build brand awareness and keep improving efficiency. In 1975, FedEx introduced its first drop boxes, allowing customers to deposit packages after hours for next day pickup. By 1976, daily package volume had grown to around 19,000, and the company was consistently profitable. One of the biggest catalysts for FedEx's growth was a change in federal law. In 1977, Congress deregulated the air cargo industry, was Public Law 95-163, lifting restrictions on routes and aircraft for freight airlines. This was a game changer. Fred Smith, who had lobbied hard for deregulation, wasted no time. As soon as the law allowed, FedEx acquired 7 Boeing 727 jets, much larger planes than its small Falcons, enabling it to carry more cargo farther and faster. In 1978, FedEx went public on the New York Stock Exchange, raising additional capital. The company then launched Cosmos, a computerized tracking and logistics management system that was pioneering for its time. What it did was allow FedEx to monitor packages and trucks and weather in real time. And this emphasis on technology would become a FedEx hallmark. By the early 1980s, the numbers told an incredible story. Federal Express became the first American company to achieve $1 billion in revenues within 10 years of startup without mergers or acquisition. That milestone, reached in 1983, underscored how quickly FedEx's service had gained traction. Virtually overnight, pun intended, Fred Smith had created not just a company, but an entire new market segment. Overnight, time-guaranteed package delivery. An often overlooked aspect of FedEx's success was Smith's eye for marketing and branding. In 1978, FedEx introduced what would become one of the most famous advertising slogans ever, when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. This bold promise was more than just an ad. It was a guarantee that set FedEx apart from any competitor. Smith poured resources into promoting the slogan, even airing a memorable, fast-paced TV commercial featuring a rapid-talking actor to drive home the point that FedEx meant speed. He wasn't just selling delivery, he was selling certainty. That marketing genius built tremendous trust in the FedEx brand. Customers came to believe that if you absolutely, positively needed to get a package somewhere overnight, FedEx was the only way. Smith's focus on brand promise created loyal customers and fueled word-of-mouth growth. By the end of the 1980s, FedEx had firmly established itself as a leader in express shipping. It opened a super hub in Memphis, which was a massive sorting facility that became the central nerve of FedEx's network in 1981. The company also expanded internationally. It started servicing Canada in 1981 and in Asia and Europe in the years soon after. Under Smith's leadership, FedEx continued to innovate. They developed handheld barcode scanners for tracking. They established real-time dispatch systems for couriers, and they constantly improved logistic algorithms. Each innovation further improved their speed or reliability, widening FedEx's competitive moat. Innovations that set FedEx apart. Several key innovations drove FedEx's rise and remain core to its operations even today. We can start with the hub and spoke system. Fred Smith's original hub concept became reality with the Memphis Super Hub. All packages fly to a central hub for sorting each night. Then are flown out to their final destinations by morning. This system maximizes efficiency and speed. Smith essentially created a package clearinghouse, much like how banks clear checks, but for physical parcels. Today, hub and spoke is the standard in logistics and even adopted by passenger airlines, but FedEx was the trailblazer. Tracking technology. FedEx was among the first to implement computerized package tracking. In the late 1970s, FedEx developed internal tracking numbers to monitor shipments and soon made tracking available to their customers. This transparency was new to the industry. Customers could actually follow their package's journey. The company also equipped its couriers with wireless devices, the DAD system, for real-time communication and dispatch. These technologies not only improved the reliability, but also built customer trust. In fact, one of FedEx's original Super Tracker barcode scanners now sits in the Smithsonian Museum, which is a testament to how significant it was. Overnight sorting and logistics mastery. Coordinating thousands of shipments overnight required cutting-edge logistics software. FedEx's Cosmos system and later advancements gave it an edge in efficiency. Planes, Lanes were routed, trucks dispatched, and staffing optimized using data long before big data became a buzzword. Customer convenience. Beyond drop boxes, FedEx introduced services like Zapmail, an early fax-based rapid document delivery in the 1980s, and continuously improved its courier network to allow last-minute pickups. While Zapmail ultimately failed, it shows FedEx's willingness to experiment to meet customer needs. Through these innovations, FedEx consistently stayed a step ahead. Smith's philosophy was that growth and success come from innovation and investment and increase in scale. In other words, keep innovating and expanding to serve more customers. FedEx did exactly that. Building a global empire. What started as Fred Smith's college project is now a global logistics powerhouse. FedEx, short for Federal Express as it rebranded in the 1990s, grew from that single hub in Memphis to a worldwide network of hubs and routes. By the 2000s, FedEx was handling not just overnight air express, but also ground delivery, freight services, and international express through various divisions. It acquired other companies like Flying Tigers, Air Cargo, and Kinko's to broaden its reach. The company Smith founded now connects virtually every corner of the earth with reliable delivery service. To appreciate the scale of FedEx today, look at some of these numbers. Global workforce. Over 547,000 team members operate FedEx's businesses, reflecting the enormous manpower behind its logistic machinery. For context, that's more than the population of most mid-sized cities. Worldwide reach. FedEx serves more than 220 countries and territories across the globe. If a plane receives mail, chances are FedEx can deliver there, from major cities to remote towns. Daily package volume. FedEx moves over 15 million packages each day on average. That's every day. Millions of documents, gifts, products, and urgent shipments absolutely, positively arriving at their destination. It's a far cry from the 186 packages on that first flight night in 1973. Financial scale. FedEx's annual revenues are around $90 billion as of recent years, placing it among the top companies in the world. The business Fred Smith started in his college years became a $90 billion empire. This massive scale was achieved in just a few decades, driven by Fred Smith's relentless pursuit of his vision. Fred Smith remained at the helm of FedEx for decades, guiding its expansion. He served as CEO and chairman, overseeing the company's innovation and growth into the 21st century. In June of 2022, after 50 years, Smith retired as CEO, passing the reins to his successor, though he stayed on as executive chairman. By this time, FedEx was not only delivering overnight envelopes, but also enabling e-commerce globally, providing supply chain solutions, and even aiding in disaster relief logistics. The company's purple and orange logo had become synonymous with fast, dependable delivery. It's worth noting, too, that Fred Smith's impact extends beyond just business. Over the years, he also engaged a lot in philanthropy, donating to educational causes, healthcare, and supporting his community, though often quietly. He also became part owner of the Washington football team for the NFL and remained an active voice in industry affairs, championing issues like free trade and infrastructure development. Smith's achievement earned him many accolades. He's widely regarded as one of the greatest entrepreneurs in transportation history. He was often asked to share his advice, and one of his core messages was about risk and perseverance. Legacy and lessons. Fred Smith's story is the stuff of entrepreneurial legend. He took a half-baked college paper idea, one that experts dismissed, and through vision and sheer grit, built it into an industry-defining company. Along the way, he stared down failure multiple times. When critics said an overnight delivery network was impossible, he proved it was possible. When FedEx was nearly broke, he gambled everything he had to buy just a little more time and then made the most of that time. His journey offers several powerful lessons. Believe in your vision. If you genuinely believe you have a game-changing idea, don't let the naysayer stop you. Smith's professor didn't see the potential, but Smith trusted his own analysis. Conviction is crucial for any innovator. As Smith demonstrated, innovation often starts when others stop believing. Perseverance in the face of adversity. Things got extremely tough for Smith, far tougher than most new CEOs face. Yet he didn't quit. He was willing to do anything, ethically, to save his company, whether that meant flying around the country pitching investors, or even flying to Vegas to roll the dice. That persistence, the refusing to check out or give up, was the deciding factor in FedEx's survival. Calculated risk-taking. While gambling the last $5,000 was unconventional, it underscores a point. Bold risks can be necessary, especially early on. Smith assessed that without a last-ditch effort, FedEx was finished. So the downside of gambling was no worse than doing nothing. It was a calculated risk born from desperation, yes, but it highlights the kind of decisive boldness entrepreneurs sometimes need. Fortune favors the bold. Innovation and continuous improvement. Smith didn't just rest after the initial success. He and FedEx kept innovating from technology to services. They kept one-upping themselves, making it hard for competitors to catch up. This taught the business world that to stay on top, you must keep evolving and driving change. Customer first mentality. The famous slogan, absolutely positively overnight, exemplifies FedEx's promise to customers. Smith built the company on a foundation of trust and reliability, always focusing on meeting customer needs, which were speed, reliability, tracking, transparency. That customer-centric ethos created immense brand loyalty. Fred Smith passed away in June 2025 at age 80, but his legacy is very much alive. Each day, millions of packages circle the globe on FedEx planes and trucks, a living testament to his vision. He didn't just create a company, he created a new category of service and changed the way the world does business. Entrepreneurs continue to study his story for inspiration. After all, it's not every day that a C paper and black jet bet lead to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. And perhaps the most important takeaway is the simplest. Never quit when things get tough. Bet on yourself, even when no one else will. Fred's journey demonstrates that with self-belief, perseverance, and a bit of daring, you can deliver on even the wildest dream. His story proves that great success often demands great courage, and sometimes the willingness to gamble on your own vision.
Imagine growing up never knowing if there'd be food on the table. That was Tony Robbins' reality. He was born in 1960 and raised in a chaotic and abusive household. Tony was the oldest of three, often acting as a protector for his younger siblings. His mother, who he loved dearly, had a volatile temper and struggled with substance abuse. She married and divorced multiple times, which meant Tony had 4 different fathers come and go. There was constant instability. One day there might be dinner, the next day nothing. Often Tony was hungry, scared, and never certain what tomorrow would bring. One of Tony's lowest moments came as a teenager. The abuse at home escalated to the point where, at 17 years old, Tony's mother chased him out of the house with a knife. Think about that, a parent threatening your life. Tony knew he had to escape, so he left home and never returned, determined to find a better path. Overnight, he went from a turbulent home to no home at all. He had no college education, no money, and no support system waiting for him. To survive, Tony took a job as a janitor, earning about $40 a week. He also worked evenings, moving people's belongings for extra cash. It was backbreaking work, but he did it with one thing in mind. This was not going to be how his story was to end. You think your early life is hard? Consider Tony's. By 17, he was essentially on his own, scrubbing floors at night just to eat. Yet in that hardship, Tony found an inner hunger. He describes that adversity by saying, "If my mom had been the mother I thought I wanted, I wouldn't be as driven. I wouldn't be as hungry. I probably wouldn't have cared about other people suffering as much as I do." In other words, the very pain that could have broken him fueled his drive instead. Psychology research actually backs this up. Individuals who face childhood trauma can develop remarkable resilience and creativity as coping mechanisms. One study found that people who experienced adversity in youth were more likely to become entrepreneurs, often because they learned to adapt and fight for a better life. Tony is living proof. His tough childhood lit a fire in him, a hunger to change his circumstances and to ensure no one around him would suffer the way he did. But Tony's early years weren't only filled with pain. There was one beautiful moment that planted a seed of purpose in his heart. One Thanksgiving, when Tony was 11 years old, his family was so broke they couldn't afford a meal. They expected a dinner of canned vegetables. Pretty depressing for the holiday. Then the doorbell rang. Young Tony opened it and saw a stranger standing there with bags of groceries. It was a complete surprise. They hadn't asked anyone for help. Tony yelled for his dad, ecstatic that they've got food. But Tony's father reacted with anger and pride, initially refusing the charity. The stranger gently persisted, saying, "This is a gift from someone who cares. Don't let your family starve because of your pride." Tony's dad finally accepted the groceries, but he left the family shortly after, overwhelmed by shame. For Tony, however, that day was transformational. We had no idea it was coming, and that simple act didn't just fill my plates, it filled my heart with hope. It showed me that strangers care. That single act of kindness lit a spark in Tony. He learned the power of giving. He often says the secret to living is giving, and he lives it. In fact, Tony made a lifelong promise to pay it forward. Through his Basket Brigade and Foundation, he's now delivered millions of meals to families in need on Thanksgiving all over the world. Think about that ripple effect. One stranger's generosity inspired a movement that has helped countless people. Science shows that giving to others doesn't just help the recipient, it boosts the giver's happiness as well. Studies have found that people who spend money on others report greater happiness than those who spend it on themselves. Tony felt that joy at 11 years old, and he built a philosophy around it. So here's a lesson. Your background might be chaotic. You might have every excuse to say, success isn't for me. But Tony's early life teaches a critical lesson. You can choose to let adversity fuel you instead of fool you. Instead of using his past as an excuse, Tony used it as a reason to be hungry for change, to care deeply about other people's pain, and to never settle for less than he could be. If he could make that choice amid so much turmoil, you can too. As Tony often reminds us, your past does not equal your future. In fact, sometimes your past becomes the fuel for an even brighter future. Tony's life began to change when he discovered something powerful. The right mentor can compress decades of learning into days. So picture this. 17-year-old Tony is cleaning floors by night and going to high school by day, desperate for a break. One weekend, he's helping a family friend move houses, that side hustle to earn a few extra bucks. Tony can't help but notice that his friend, who his dad used to call a loser, suddenly seems really successful. So Tony, bold kid that he is, straight up asks, "My dad said you used to be such a loser. How come you're so successful now?" If you can imagine, Tony's always had guts. The friend wasn't offended. Instead, he smiled and told Tony about a Jim Rohn seminar he'd attended. He said, "This man takes everything he's learned in 20, 30 years of life and pours it into like 4 hours." For Tony, that idea was electrifying. 4 hours to gain decades of wisdom, he needed to go. But the seminar ticket was around $35 to $40, basically a week's pay for Tony at the time. Think about being 17 and gambling an entire week's wage on a hunch that a seminar might change your life. Would you do it? Tony did. He says it was a big decision to spend all that money, but he went for it. And that choice right there was a turning point. Tony walked into Jim Rohn's seminar and was absolutely mesmerized. Jim Rohn was a renowned personal development speaker, wise, calm, and incredibly insightful. For Tony, it was like someone finally handed him the manual for a better life that he'd been searching for. Jim Rohn's teachings hit Tony like a ton of bricks, in a good way. One lesson in particular lit Tony up from the inside, Rohn said. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. This was revelation. All Tony's life, he'd been working hard just to survive. But here was the idea that if he improved himself, he could change the world. Tony later reflected, "Jim gave me a way of looking at life that allowed me to not ask life to be easier, but to ask that I be better." That mindset shift from blaming circumstances to building yourself was pure gold. Tony realized the secret to life was self-education and personal growth, and that if he developed skills and character, he'd always be able to help others succeed. Tony didn't just take notes at that seminar, he took action. By the end of the event, he had a burning question for Jim Rohn. How can I work for you? Now, Jim Rohn was a big deal. He had plenty of staff, but something about Tony's passion stood out. Jim saw a bit of his younger self in this kid full of drive. He gave Tony a chance to prove himself selling seminar tickets, and boy did Tony prove himself. At just 18 years old, Tony became the top salesman promoting Jim Rohn events. He was on fire, traveling city to city, convincing people to come hear Jim Rohn, basically evangelizing the message that had changed his own life. Then one day, Jim Rohn called young Tony into his office. He said, "Tony, I want to expand and I'm going to make you the owner of a branch office. You've earned it." Jim told Tony to choose any city, any team size, the sky's the limit. Tony was stunned. He had a dream of maybe becoming a manager someday, and here was his mentor handing him the keys. Tony, brimming with confidence, said he wanted an office in Beverly Hills with a team of 30 people. Quite an ask for a teenager. Jim essentially replied, "Great, it's yours. You start immediately." When Tony asked about his salary, Jim dropped another surprise. "You write it. You're in your own business now." Jim had set Tony up as an independent distributor, meaning Tony wasn't an employee anymore. He was an entrepreneur running his own show at 18. Talk about empowerment. Tony later said that was one of the greatest gifts Jim ever gave him, the chance to run a business and learn firsthand. He had no role models of entrepreneurs growing up, so Jim became that role model. Suddenly, Tony was running his own small business promoting seminars. He had to hire and motivate a team, manage logistics, and sell to keep that office alive. It was sink or swim, and Tony swam. He worked tirelessly, giving speeches around Los Angeles, filling rooms for Jim Rohn's talks. In those years, Tony not only honed his public speaking and sales skills, but he also learned a priceless lesson about business. The chokehold on the growth of any business is the psychology and skills of the leader, he says. In other words, a business can only grow as much as its leader does. Tony experienced that firsthand. When he doubted himself, sales would slip. When he was motivated and resourceful, sales would surge. So for you as an entrepreneur, this part of Tony's journey shows the incredible value of mentorship and self-education. Tony often cites a quote from his mentor: "If you want life to change, you have to change. If you want life to get better, you have to get better." Jim Rohn had condensed decades of wisdom into seminars that Tony soaked up in days, and Tony applied it immediately by working for Jim. This combination of learning and doing was explosive for Tony's growth. He literally went from janitor to running a Beverly Hills office in about a year because he found a mentor and showed up coachable. And Tony's not alone. A lot of successful people have a mentor. In fact, research shows that having a mentor dramatically improves your chances of success in business. One study found that 1/3 of successful entrepreneurs had a mentor or support network, whereas among entrepreneurs who failed, only 14% had mentorship. That's a huge difference. Think about it. 33% versus 14%. Success leaves clues. And one big clue is don't do it alone. Find someone who's achieved what you aspire to and learn from them. Tony's hunger for guidance didn't end with Jim Rohn. He kept seeking out experts to learn from NLP co-founder John Grinder, with whom Tony trained in neuro-linguistic programming in his early days, to modeling the best in every field he encountered. That's how he built his diverse skill set. So ask yourself, who can you learn from? Maybe you can't meet your heroes in person, but when you read their books, watch their talks, watch their YouTube videos, take their courses, Tony spent what little money he had on seminars and books rather than instant pleasures. It paid off massively. The key lesson here is invest in yourself. Tony invested time, money, and effort to improve his mindset and skills. At age 17, when most of his peers were just hanging out, you can do the same at any age. It might mean swallowing your pride and becoming a student again, but it's worth it. As Tony learned from Jim Rohn, work harder on yourself than anything else because your own growth is the engine for your success. Mentors and role models shortcut the learning curve, but you have to step up and do the work. Tony showed up, took notes, volunteered, asked questions. He was an active mentee, not a passive one. And because he was so coachable, mentors opened even more doors for him. So who is your Jim Rohn? And equally important, are you ready to be the kind of mentee that absorbs knowledge like a sponge and acts on it? When you do, you set yourself up for the kind of breakthrough Tony experienced. It's like hitting fast forward on your growth. Tony's trajectory from broke teen to budding businessman happened so fast because he leveraged mentorship and massive action. You can do this. Seek guidance, stay hungry to learn, and then get out there and implement what you learn. As Tony put it, success leaves clues. So find those clues from people who've walked the path and use them to blaze your trail. Equipped with new skills and unshakable drive, Tony Robbins set out to multiply his impact beyond working for someone else. By his early 20s, Tony had a vision of taking what he learned and spreading it to as many people as possible on his own terms. He often says he had no intention of becoming a businessman at first. He was just obsessed with finding solutions to help people improve their lives. But that obsession naturally led him into business ventures. Tony's first big solo success came from combining innovation with massive action. In the 1980s, he decided to share his strategies through a self-help book and audio program. At just 24 years old, Tony wrote Unlimited Power, a book that introduced his ideas on personal achievement. He also distilled his coaching into a 30-day audio program called Personal Power. But here's the kicker. Tony didn't rely on traditional methods to reach people. He went all in on infomercials, a cutting-edge move at the time. Those late-night TV spots where an energetic guy promises to change your life, Tony was that guy. And he was one of the first in the self-help industry to do it so effectively. It was a game changer. Tony's enthusiasm blasted through TV screens into millions of homes. His message that you have the power to change your life resonated widely. People from all walks of life started ordering his tapes and practicing his techniques. Tony's leap to television caused his career to explode. He said that 1 year in his early 20s, he made about $40,000. And the very next year, after the infomercials hit, he made over $1 million. That's a 25x jump in income in 1 year. He was only about 25 years old and suddenly a self-made millionaire. And according to Tony, from that point on, he never earned less than $1 million a year again. Talk about an inflection point. By 26, Tony Robbins was not just making money, he was becoming famous. His youthful charisma and real results landed him interviews and a growing fan base. In the 1990s, Tony's companies hit over $50 million in annual revenue. And his influence kept expanding. He published Awaken the Giant Within in 1991, which became a classic in the genre, inspiring entrepreneurs and leaders worldwide to adopt empowering beliefs and habits. That book is still on many CEOs' must-read lists. By the early 2000s, Tony's success allowed him to invest and partner in numerous businesses. It's reported by the 2000s his enterprises were bringing in more than $30 million in yearly profits, and he was just getting started. Tony has a natural instinct for business strategy. Even though he says he stumbled into being a business owner, once he got a taste, he became a student of business itself. Over the years, he ended up founding or partnering in dozens of companies. As of today, Tony Robbins is involved in more than 30 companies in industries ranging from education to hospitality to sports to finance, with a combined annual sales of around $5 billion. Yes, billion with a B. Some estimates even put his network of businesses higher. One source notes he's involved with 100 plus companies doing over $7 billion per year. But conservatively, the guy has an empire that most entrepreneurs can only dream of. What's remarkable is how Tony built that empire by practicing what he preaches. He is constantly innovating and looking for ways to add value. As he puts it, the secret sauce in any business is to constantly add more value to your customers than anyone else. Do more for your customers than anyone else would ever expect. This philosophy made his early products stand out. They genuinely help people, creating raving fans, and it drives his companies today. He's been honored by business authorities. Accenture named him one of the top 50 business intellectuals in the world, and Harvard Business Press and American Express have called him one of the top business leaders and strategists. That's not bad for a kid without a college degree. Tony's reach also grew through his live events, those famous high-energy seminars like Unleash the Power Within with the Firewalk and Date with Destiny. He's literally spoken to millions of people in seminars across the globe for over 4 decades. You may have seen the Netflix documentary, I Am Not Your Guru, which gives a peek into how transformational his events can be. People walk in uncertain and walk out with a new lease on life. Tony's events often have thousands in attendance. At one event in Singapore, there were over 6,000 people in the crowd, all jumping, shouting, and making big life decisions together. Tony knows how to command a room, even a stadium, with his presence and energy. At these events, you'll see him bouncing on trampolines, giving bear hugs, intervening with individuals one-on-one, whatever it takes to help someone break through fear or pain. It's truly a spectacle and a deeply moving experience for attendees. He is a master at getting people into a peak state. Thousands attend his events to experience the energy and breakthroughs. Here in Singapore, over 6,000 people were on their feet as Tony took the stage. His ability to engage and uplift a room of this size shows how much impact one person can have when they bring passion and value. As Tony's reputation grew, entrepreneurs and leaders around the world sought out his coaching. He's worked with champions in every realm, athletes like Serena Williams and Wayne Gretzky, entertainers, and of course, business moguls. One famous example is Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce. In the 1990s, Benioff was a young, ambitious entrepreneur who attended Tony's seminar. He was so impressed that he asked Tony to mentor him. Tony agreed, and for years he advised Mark Benioff as Mark built Salesforce from a startup into a cloud computing giant. Benioff has often credited Tony's influence in helping him craft his vision and company culture. Tony's also been a coach and friend to Paul Tudor Jones II, one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world. Tony has mentored him for over 24 years. When someone at the top of their field like Jones or Benioff keeps Tony around for decades, it tells you Tony delivers real value. He's known as the CEO whisperer, a behind-the-scenes advisor helping leaders sharpen their psychology and strategy. By helping the elite perform even better, Tony had a hand in countless innovations and deals that shape industries. At the same time, he's never lost touch with everyday entrepreneurs. His business mastery seminars are tailored to business owners, where he personally teaches what he's learned about scaling companies, marketing, finance, and leadership. He distilled these lessons into what he calls the 7 forces of business mastery, covering everything from creating an effective business map to world-class marketing to constant innovation. Entrepreneurs pay tens of thousands to attend his business programs because a single insight from Tony can transform their revenue or save their company. And often, it's not just technical know-how, it's the way Tony reframes their mindset that unleashes their next level. Tony's own business journey wasn't without challenges, by the way. He's had partnerships that didn't work out, economic downturns that hit his companies hard, even public criticism to navigate. But what makes Tony stand out is that he applies the same resilience to his businesses that he preaches to individuals. He will be the first to tell you that not everything he touched turned to gold immediately. He had to learn, pivot, and sometimes take hits. For example, when the 2008 financial crisis happened, Tony saw many people suffering and realized he himself needed to deepen his financial knowledge to help. That led him to spend years interviewing top investors and ultimately writing Money, Master the Game. In 2014, a book compiling financial wisdom for the average person. He donated all the profits of that book to charity, feeding people, of course, and simultaneously reestablished himself in an entirely new domain, personal finance, with huge success. That's Tony. See a need, immerse in learning, deliver value, repeat. By now, Tony Robbins has achieved a level of success and impact few ever will. But what's truly inspiring is how he did it. Through relentless growth, passionate service, and absolute congruence with his teachings, he became a living example of the principles that he shares. It's one thing to give advice. It's another thing to embody it for decades. Tony does the latter. So here are some key takeaways from Tony's rise for you. Innovate and be willing to do things differently, like Tony did with infomercials before it was popular. Deliver massive value. Outwork and outcarry your competition when it comes to serving your customers. And perhaps, most importantly, scale your influence by empowering others. Tony went from one-on-one coaching to one-on-1,000 seminars to one-on millions reading TV, books, and YouTube. In your business, think about how you can reach more people and serve at a higher level by leveraging media, technology, or a team. Tony's just one person, but through smart strategy, he's managed to touch the lives of millions of people. If he can go from literally zero to that, why can't you reach 10x or 100x more people than you currently do? That mindset shift from addition to multiplication is what separates good entrepreneurs from great ones. Finally, take notice that Tony's success always circles back to helping others. He became wildly successful because he obsessed over how to help people get what they want. As the Zig Ziglar quote goes, you will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Tony is a prime example. Even now, in his 60s, he's constantly traveling, speaking, and contributing. He doesn't need to work another day financially. He chooses to because of his mission. When you build your business around a mission that truly helps people, you build something far more enduring and meaningful. Tony often says business is a spiritual game. It's about the soul you pour into it and the lives you touch. His life's work shows that making money and making a difference are not mutually exclusive. They're synergistic. So as you dream of your next level, ask, how can I serve? How can I solve problems for others in a way no one else is? Approach it with that give first mentality Tony has, and your success will be a byproduct of the genuine impact you create. So up to now, we've seen how Tony Robbins' mindset and strategies fueled his journey from broke to billions. Now let's switch gears and focus on you. What lessons from Tony's life and teachings can you apply to your own entrepreneurial journey right now? Tony's wisdom is vast, but I've distilled 4 core principles that come up again and again in his work, especially relevant to entrepreneurs. These are the mindsets and practices that Tony preaches and lives that can help take your business and life to the next level. Number 1, state is everything. Master your mind and emotions. Tony Robbins is big on this. Manage your state or your state will manage you. State means your emotional and psychological condition in any moment. As an entrepreneur, you're going to face crisis, doubts, long nights. How you respond is everything. Tony teaches that emotion is created by motion. Change your body and you change your mind. There's science behind this. Research has shown that adopting a confident, expansive posture, so-called power poses, for just 2 minutes can increase testosterone, which is the confidence hormone, and decrease cortisol, which is the stress hormone, making you feel more powerful and less stressed. In simple terms, stand tall, breathe deep, shoulders back, and you'll literally biochemically boost your confidence. Conversely, slouching and shallow breathing can make you feel weaker. Tony has intuitively taught this for years. At his events, before even tackling anyone's limiting beliefs, he often has them shake out their body and yell yes and adopt a posture of certainty. It might look silly, but it works by shifting the person's state. Tony also emphasizes the power of focus and meaning. What you focus on, you feel, he says. 2 people can face the exact same failure. One focuses on the loss and feels defeated. The other focuses on the lesson and feels motivated. The habit of focus is a huge separator between those who get stuck and those who innovate through challenges. As an entrepreneur, you must become a master of meaning. Tony often illustrates this with a story from that Thanksgiving incident. He and his father made very different meanings of the same event. Tony focused on the fact that strangers cared enough to give and he felt grateful and inspired. His father focused on his failure to provide and he felt shame. Each of them had a radically different emotional experience because of their focus. So ask yourself, when you're in a tough spot, what else could this mean? That's a very Tony question. Didn't lend that investor? You could tell yourself it means your idea is worthless, cue the despair music, or you could decide it means you need to refine your pitch and find a better investor, cue the determination. Tony trains people to stand guard at the door of their mind, as his mentor Jim Rohn used to say. Don't let just any thought wander in and take control. You get to choose which thoughts to focus on and which to discard. Another aspect of state is your beliefs, especially the beliefs about yourself, which Tony calls your story. Tony says it bluntly, the only thing that's keeping you from getting what you want is the story you keep telling yourself. If you keep telling yourself, I'm new, I'm young, investors won't take me seriously, or I always mess up marketing, that story will sabotage you even if you have all the skills. Tony will challenge people hard on their limiting stories because he knows a disempowering story can paralyze even the brightest person. The flip side is also true. An empowering story can uplift an average person to do amazing things. Tony's own story could have been, I'm broken from a broken home, but he chose, I'm responsible for my life and I care about others' pain, so I will heal myself and help others heal too. What a story, right? And he's lived into it. So if you struggle with negative self-talk, here's a Tony-inspired exercise. Identify the limiting story you've been telling yourself, maybe about why you can't 10x your business, or why you can't find the right business partner, or whatever. Write it down. Then ask, what is this story costing me? Really feel that. Next, create a new story that is both true and empowering, something that gets you to take action. For example, I'm not experienced enough to, I'm resourceful and I can learn anything I need to. Tony swears by incantations, not just affirmations, but incantations, where you speak your new belief with total conviction using your body. It might be a bit out of your comfort zone, but speaking, I am unstoppable, I find solutions to every problem, while in a peak state, every morning can wire that belief in. Athletes do this, great speakers do this, and yes, Tony does this. He has a whole morning routine of breathing, movement, and incantations and prayer that he calls priming. So to sum it up, master your state, use your physiology, move, exercise, power poses, guard your focus, find the empowering meaning in every situation, and curate your beliefs. We need to start ditching the old story and adopt the new one that serves you. Tony's own daily energy and consistency of his performance over decades show how powerful this is. It's not that he never feels down or stressed, he's human, but he's trained himself to snap back to a peak state rapidly. As an entrepreneur, if you can do that, go from problem to solution oriented in minutes, from fatigue to energized on command, you have a massive edge. Business is full of uncertainty. Controlling your internal environment is often the only thing you can control, and it makes all the difference. Number 2, raise your standards and take massive action. Tony Robbins is known for his high standards. He doesn't do things small or half-hearted, and he challenges others to step up their standards to achieve lasting change. One of his famous quotes is, anytime you sincerely want to make a change, the first thing you must do is raise your standards. What does that mean? It means stop accepting mediocrity from yourself. Identify what you've been settling for in your income, your health, your team's performance, and declare that it's no longer acceptable. Shoulds have to become musts. Tony often says, if you should do something, you'll never do it. But when something is a must, you find a way. So turning your shoulds into musts is the essence of raising standards. For Tony personally, raising standards showed up early when he decided he must not remain in that small apartment, overweight and broke at age 19. So here's a quick backstory. After working with Jim Rohn, Tony went through a slump where he got physically out of shape and he was struggling. He tells a story that one day he looked in the mirror, he was fed up being 38 pounds overweight, and he punched the wall because he hated the standard he was living at. That day he made a must. He must change his body and his life. He went on to lose the weight by literally running at the beach every day with his dog and changing his diet. And more importantly, he never went back to that low standard. In your life or business, what have you been tolerating? Maybe it's tolerating a disorganized workplace or a toxic client or inconsistent marketing. Raising your standard could mean you set a new baseline. We will deliver projects on time, every time from now on. Or I will meet at least 5 new prospective customers each week, no excuses. When you set that standard, you then align your entire being to meet it. However, a standard without action is just an aspiration. This is where Tony's other trademark phrase comes in. Take massive, determined action. Massive action is the cure-all. Tony firmly believes almost anything can be solved or achieved with enough action. Not random action, but purposeful, consistent action. When Tony was starting those infomercials, he didn't just make one and cross his fingers. He flooded the airways. He tested different messages. He went big. Massive action doesn't mean reckless. It means all-in, persistent effort towards your goal, adjusting as needed, but never letting up. He often shares a simple formula. To achieve something, you must 1, decide what you want. make it a must. 2, take massive action. 3, notice what's working or not, which he calls sensory acuity. And 4, change your approach until you get what you want, flexibility. That third and fourth part add nuance. Massive action is not just brute force, it's intelligence. If one approach isn't working, massive action also means massively changing strategies until it does work. Tony is like a heat-seeking missile, locked on target but consistently course-correcting based on feedback. For example, when COVID-19 hit hard and Tony could no longer do in-person events, his entire seminar business, a major part of his brand, was at risk. At first, it looked like a disaster, but he immediately took massive action to adapt. And within a few months, he and his team engineered a state-of-the-art virtual event studio with a 360-degree screen setup, bringing thousands of people together on Zoom in a way never done before. It was the largest Unleash the Power Within seminar in 40 years. He didn't do small webinars. He went full Tony Robbins scale, even in a new medium. The result, he ended up reaching even more people globally and kept the momentum alive. Entrepreneurs faced similar pivots in that time. Those who took massive, fast action thrived, while those who waited, unfortunately, faded. One more angle on massive action. Tony often says, the path to success is to take massive determined action, and he'll add, and keep changing your approach until you get there. It sounds obvious, but ask yourself, am I really taking massive action towards my top goal? Or am I kind of dabbling, just doing enough when it's convenient? If it's the latter, it's time to crank it up. Commit to making more calls in a day than you normally do. Code more hours, create more content, whatever is relevant for your business, and do it with consistency. Most people never hit their true potential because they never truly push that throttle to 100% and keep it there for a sustained period. Tony likes to use fitness metaphors, so going all out for a short time can produce more muscle growth than years of half-hearted workouts. The same in business. 1 year of massive focused effort can sometimes achieve what 5 years of normal effort would. Now, a caution. Massive action doesn't mean burnout. Tony is extremely mindful of managing his energy. He's known for his stamina, being on stage for 12 hours straight, but he also takes care of his health diligently with diets, cold plunges, etc. So as you raise your action levels, you also need to raise your standards of self-care so you can sustain it. The goal is peak performance, not running yourself into the ground. High standards apply to rest and recovery too. So to put this into practice, try this Tony-esque challenge. Write down one area in your business where you know you've been mediocre. Next, define a new standard that is your must in the next 90 days. Then list 3 massive actions you will take immediately to enforce that standard. As an example, our lead generation is weak becomes new standard. 100 qualified leads per month must be generated. Massive actions. Invest in hiring a marketing or agency this week. Personally reach out to 5 prospects every single day. Launch that referral program you've been postponing, and so on. By making it a must and backing it with massive action, you set in motion a momentum that is hard to stop. It's exactly how Tony launched new ventures or wrote books. He decided to write Money, Master the Game, and then interviewed 50 financial legends in record time. Massive action, massive research. Remember, dreams don't work unless you do, at scale. Tony became Tony by playing full out. He invites you to do the same because he knows that's when life gets exciting. And here's a motivator. Massive action tends to yield quicker results, which then motivate you into a further upward spiral. When you see progress, you get hungrier. So even if it's daunting, start that cycle. As Tony loves to say, take massive action and figure it out as you go. Waiting for perfection is just another form of procrastination. Number 3, embrace failure and learn continuously. If there's one thing that separates successful entrepreneurs from the rest, it's their relationship with failure. Tony Robbins has a very clear stance on this. There's no such thing as failure, only results. You've probably heard a version of that before, but Tony truly embodies it. In his experience coaching top performers, he found that fear of failure is the biggest obstacle that holds people back. Entrepreneurs who tiptoe around trying to avoid failure end up timid, stuck, and ironically, they fail by default because they never strive for greatness. Tony encourages a complete reframe of failure. Instead of seeing it as something negative, see it as feedback and as a stepping stone to success. Tony often shares that even in his own businesses, not every idea worked, not every seminar filled up in the early days, and not every investment paid off. But he didn't see these outcomes as permanent failures, just as data. He urges entrepreneurs to adopt what's called a growth mindset, a term that comes from psychologist Carol Dweck, the belief that skills and outcomes are not fixed and that you can improve through effort and learning. Tony's phrasing is, it's all learning. When something goes wrong, he doesn't waste time labeling himself as a failure or or lamenting, he immediately asks, what can I learn from this? How can I use this? If a marketing campaign flops, that's valuable information on what your customers don't respond to. If a product launch underperforms, it's teaching you on what to improve. In a conversation about coachability, Tony said this: if you're trying anything new, failure will be constant. Those who don't fail will likely be swept up by someone more innovative. So you shouldn't fear failure because that just gets in your way. Instead, focus on learning more and more. Think about that. He's basically saying, if you're not failing regularly, you're probably not pushing hard enough or innovating enough, and someone else will pass you by. In today's fast-paced environment, constant adaptation is key, and adaptation comes from trying, from failing, from learning, and from adjusting. Tony's long-term client, Mark Benioff of Salesforce, is an interesting case. Benioff famously had a sign in Salesforce's office that said, "Get big fast or get eaten." That's massive action, but underlying it is the acceptance that you'll make mistakes as you move fast. You'll just correct them quickly. That's exactly how Tony runs things too. He often references a metaphor. When a rocket heads to the moon, it's off course like 90% of the time. The rocket constantly corrects its trajectory based on feedback until it reaches the destination. In the same way, your path to your goal will be off course most of the time, and that's okay if you are course correcting. Failure is just a signal to adjust, not a stop sign. So how do you put this into practice? Start by reframing the word failure itself. For your team, you might even ban the word failure and replace it with test or lesson. Encourage a culture where team members report not just their wins, but what they learned this week from experiments that did not go as expected. When something goes wrong, do a quick post-mortem. What did we learn? How can we use this? And then move on with that new wisdom. Also, examine your fear of failure. It's human to feel fear, but realize most fear of failure is actually fear of negative feelings or judgment. Tony would challenge you. What's bigger, your desire for success or your fear of embarrassment? If you truly raised your standards, point number 2, then you won't tolerate letting fear stop you. One trick Tony teaches to get over fear is to vividly imagine the consequences of not taking action. For instance, if you're afraid to launch your product, picture your company in 5 years if you keep waiting. Maybe you're out of cash, someone else stole the market, your dream evaporated. Really feel that pain. Then contrast it with the vision of success if you act. This leverage can make you say, screw it. I'd rather try and fail than never try and regret it. As Tony puts it, discipline weighs ounces, regrets weighs tons. He attributes that quote to Jim Rohn as well. You don't want the heavy weight of regret, so you take the lighter weight of disciplined action, which includes taking some lumps along the way. Here's another component, continuous learning. Tony is a learning machine. Despite being a teacher to millions, he's always a student himself. He reads voraciously, interviews experts, attends other seminars, and consumes research. He does this to be better for his clients and his companies. As an entrepreneur, the moment you think, I know it all, is the moment you're in trouble. Tony's mindset is kanai, an acronym he uses, constant and never-ending improvement. Keep asking, how can we do better? What new skills do I need to acquire? Where is the market going? This humility and curiosity will keep you ahead. Tony also emphasizes learning from those who achieve what you want. We touched on mentorship. In business, he's learned from legends like investors Paul Tudor Jones, Sir Richard Branson, Steve Wynn, and so on by seeking them out. In a similar way, identify the giants in your field and learn everything you can about how they think and operate. The good news is, many have written books or done talks, made videos. You have access to a lot of their knowledge already. Let's not forget, Tony even learns from people he mentors. He said about coaching Paul Tudor Jones, I'd be an idiot to think I'm only mentoring him. I'm constantly learning. That's the level of openness you want. Every interaction can teach you something if you're alert to it. So here's your action step. Do something that you might fail at on purpose. Launch that pilot program in a week, even if it isn't perfect. Call a big potential client you've been intimidated to approach, or publicly announce an ambitious goal to get some accountability. Do it with a mindset that whatever the result, you'll gain. If it succeeds, fantastic. If not, you'll learn why and improve. This muscles up your failure tolerance, and over time, you become desensitized to the sting of failure and actually start to treat it like a scientist does an experiment, just part of the process. That is liberating, and it's exactly how Tony operates in his ventures and personal goals. In case you didn't know, he had a tumor in his brain. That was the cause of his growth spurt that could have given him a great excuse to slow down or live carefully, but instead he treats every day as a gift to push harder. He's not afraid of what might go wrong. He's focused on making things go right. So in summary, embrace failure's lessons and commit to lifelong learning. When you do, failure loses its fangs and becomes a friend, a tough coach that makes you better. You'll start optimizing faster than others because you're willing to try more things. You'll iterate your product or business model to excellence while others are still drafting plans out of fear of getting it wrong. Tony's life is a testament to this principle. From each setback, he came back stronger because he squeezed the lesson out of it and left the rest behind. Do the same, and no failure will ever be final for you. It will be fuel. Number 4, serving greatly is the power of purpose and generosity. We've touched on this throughout Tony's story, but it deserves its own spotlight. Service and purpose. Tony Robbins' driving force isn't money, it's mission. He often says the secret to living is giving, and he's lived by that credo since that Thanksgiving when he was 11. For entrepreneurs, this translates to a powerful lesson. Make your business about more than just profits. Profits are necessary, but they are a means, not the end. The end is the impact, the contribution, the difference you make for your customers, employees, your community, and beyond. Tony's businesses all have a thread of purpose, whether it's helping people transform their lives, providing clean water in India, which is one of his philanthropic projects, feeding the hungry, or educating people on finance so they can have dignity in retirement. There's always a why that's bigger than the what. This does 2 things. It motivates you and your team to go above and beyond. And it also endears your brand to customers on a deeper level. People sense when a company genuinely cares. In an age where consumers are savvy and values driven, having an authentic mission is a huge competitive advantage aside from just being the right thing to do. Think about Tony's basket brigade tradition. As we talked about, he's helped provide millions of meals to families in need. He doesn't make a dime from that. In fact, he donates a ton of money and time to it, but it's part of the lifeblood of his organization. When employees or partners know the person at the top is that committed to giving back, it creates a culture of generosity and loyalty. Many entrepreneurs have followed suit, integrating philanthropy into their model from early on. Salesforce, for example, adopted a 1-to-1 model. So 1% equity, 1% product, 1% employee time donated to charity. But you don't have to wait until you're rich to start giving. Tony started feeding families when he was barely making any money himself. He set aside a portion because he remembered how one meal changed his family's life. He often says, if you won't give a dime out of $1, don't kid yourself you'll give $1 million out of $10 million. Start giving now, wherever you are. This resonates. It's about building that muscle of contribution early. For entrepreneurs, maybe you can donate a percentage of sales to a cause aligned with your business, or simply give your time and skills to help others in your network without expecting something in return. It might seem paradoxical, but giving actually opens doors to receiving in unexpected ways. Tony's massive network of influential friends is no accident. He's been helping people for decades, so naturally, so many people want to help him or get involved in his opportunities. Also, having a purpose can pull you through really tough times. When the challenges stack up and a purely financial goal might not keep you motivated, there's only so much pain you'll go through just for money. A higher purpose will. If your goal is to, say, revolutionize education for children or bring green energy to communities, that purpose becomes a well of strength when you encounter setbacks. Tony's purpose, originally to end suffering for himself and help end suffering for others, is like a nuclear reactor inside him. It keeps him going at an age where many would retire because he's not doing it for ego or cash. He truly wants to contribute until his last breath. When you tap into a purpose that gives you goosebumps, you become virtually unstoppable. Now let's talk practically. How can you infuse more purpose and service into your business? Start with your customer. Obsess over how you can genuinely improve their life or business. Tony's secret to building raving fans: do more for your customers than anyone else. Surprise them, over-deliver, add personal touches, follow up to ensure they got results. When people feel cared for, they not only stick around, they refer others enthusiastically. Tony's entire early business grew via word of mouth from people whose lives were changed. Even with all the marketing he did, it was the heartfelt referrals that cemented his brand. Also, consider a cause that resonates with you and your team. It should be something you authentically care about. Authenticity matters. Don't just pick a charity for PR. Maybe it's related to your industry, a tech company mentoring underprivileged kids in STEM, for example. Involve your team in giving back. It's hugely morale boosting. Studies have shown that workplaces that enable employees to volunteer or contribute have higher engagement and job satisfaction. It feels good to do good. A simple human truth backed by science. Tony often shares a beautiful insight. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. You don't want to climb the ladder of success only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. That you achieve success but feel empty because it lacked meaning. Fulfillment, he says, comes from growth and contribution. We've covered growth, continuous learning, etc., and contribution is the other side of that coin. So design your entrepreneurial journey such that you are growing and contributing along the way, not just at the end. There's also a bit of enlightened self-interest here. Generosity is a prosperity mindset. When you give freely, you're subconsciously telling yourself, I have plenty and there will always be more, which is an abundance mindset. Fearful people hoard. Successful people give and create. Tony's mentor Jim Rohn taught him the importance of giving even when you have little. It destroys the fear that you don't have enough. Ironically, that very act of giving tends to attract more wealth, maybe because you network with other givers, or you reinforce productive beliefs, or simply karma. Tony saw that play out in his life and in many of his wealthy friends' lives. On a day-to-day level, serving greatly can mean simply listening to people better. Tony is an excellent listener when he's coaching someone. He's fully present and focused on understanding them. As a leader, you could do the same with your employees or customers. Listen to their needs and pains. It's a huge act of service in a world where most people are too busy to truly listen. To really bring this home, remember the stat that I said before: 1/3 of successful entrepreneurs had a mentor or support group versus 14% of failed ones. This implies the successful ones were both receiving and likely giving support in networks. Humans succeed best cooperatively. Service is not only downwards like charity, but also sideways and upwards, helping peers, adding value before expecting something, mentoring others when you can. Tony still conducts free interventions on people in crowds, knowing not all of them can afford his coaching. It's a service, but also those moments often become testimonials that spread his legend. So it's a win-win. So here's an action reflection. Ask yourself, what is my company or my personal's ultimate purpose beyond making money? Why does what you do matter in the big picture? If you shut down today, who would cry, or what void would there be? If the answer is fuzzy, spend time to clarify your mission. Write it out, make it inspiring, share it with your team frequently. Let it guide your decision making. When facing a tough call, ask which option aligns more with your mission of service. And start giving in small ways now. It could be as simple as mentoring a younger entrepreneur over coffee once a week, or giving free access to your software to a nonprofit, or volunteering in your community. These acts keep you connected to humanity and prevent burnout by reminding you that your work has meaning. Tony's life demonstrates a beautiful paradox. By focusing on helping others, he himself achieved wealth and fulfillment. By believing in others, he strengthened his own belief. By giving love, he feels love constantly. The man is surrounded by gratitude from those who he's helped. In your entrepreneurial path, keep that spirit. It will make the journey joyful no matter what level of success you reach. And it ensures that when you do reach those victories, they're rich with meaning and pride, not hollow. Impact is the real scorecard that Tony cares about. And likely, deep down, it's what we all care about. So we've journeyed through Tony Robbins' life from a kid in a tumultuous home to a towering figure of inspiration, and distilled the lessons that entrepreneurs like you can harness. Now it boils down to this: what will you do with this knowledge? Tony often says a life can change in a moment, the moment you make a real decision. Maybe this is that moment for you. Tony's story shows that it doesn't matter where you start. You could have every disadvantage, every reason to play small, and still choose to play big. At 17, Tony made a decision to not be a victim of his circumstances. At various points, he decided to go all in on improving himself, to take risks on new ventures, to step up, to serve when others shrank back. Those decisions, backed by action, are why he is who he is today. And now it's your turn. You have something special inside you too. Your own giant within, as Tony would say, and it's time to awaken it. Think about the struggles you faced. Maybe tough childhood experiences, failures, rejection, self-doubt. Those can be your fuel if you let them. Tony used to keep reminders of his past hardships, like that empty Thanksgiving table, not to feel bad, but to remind him why he must keep growing and giving. What pain or injustice fires you up to create change? Embrace it and commit to being the solution. I want to end with a challenge. Channeling my inner Tony and Evan together. I challenge you to take one powerful action in the next 24 hours that will move you towards your dreams. Not next month, not someday, now. It could be a phone call to that mentor or expert you've been meaning to reach out to. It could be finally registering that business, filming that product demo, or even apologizing to someone you need to make things right with so you can move forward. Do something bold. Fortune favors the bold, and clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So engage and make that move. Remember, knowledge is worthless without execution. As Tony reminds us, the path to success is to take massive, determined action. You've got some new insights and motivation here. Don't let it fade. Leverage it immediately. Take a step that commits you, that maybe even scares you a bit. That's when you know you're growing. And when you take that action, carry Tony's core belief with you, that you are in control of your destiny. Yes, you, not your parents, not the economy, not the doubters. You get to write the story from here on out. If the old chapters weren't great, use Tony's techniques. Get grateful for them because they gave you the muscles. Then write the next chapters as the hero of the story, not the victim. Also, cultivate that mindset of absolute belief in yourself and your mission. Tony has an infectious certainty when he speaks. That certainty is a result of aligning his focus, physiology, beliefs, and habits all in one direction. You can do the same. Priming your mind each morning with empowering thoughts, visualizing your outcomes, remembering your purpose. Over time, that creates an unshakable belief. And when you believe in you, others can't help but believe in you too. So, what's the vision that pulls you? See it, feel it, and step into it today. Maybe you're the next great innovator in your field or the leader of a movement that changes your community. Why not? As Tony often says, why live an ordinary life when you can live an extraordinary one? The only limits are the ones you set up in your mind or the lack of imagination to see what's possible. So you've learned how Tony turned his pain into purpose, how he met mentors who ignited him, how he built an empire by providing insane value, how he mastered his mind and heart to keep growing, and how he never forgot that serving others is the highest calling. Take these lessons to heart, apply them. They work. They've been proven, not just by Tony, but by countless other successful entrepreneurs who follow similar principles of mindset, passion, and perseverance. In the end, success in business and in life isn't about avoiding mistakes or catching lucky breaks. It's about consistently showing up as your best self, learning and adapting and contributing to something meaningful. Tony Robbins turned his life around and has guided millions to do the same. He believes in the power of the individual, the power in you. And you know what? I do too. You have everything it takes to make your dream a reality, or to dream even bigger than you've allowed yourself before. Don't let anyone, especially that inner critic, tell you otherwise. Step up, take charge, and let your actions proclaim your faith in your mission. Do it, and your future self will thank you. Tony likes to end his talks with energy and a decisive call to action. So here it is. Decide who you are. Decide what you want, and go after it with all you've got. You can script a new story starting today, one of courage, growth, and impact. It's your life, and it's happening right now. So unleash your power. Live your passion, and remember, the only limit is the one you set for yourself. I'll leave you with one of Tony's favorite words, and mine. Believe.
And congratulations, you're one video closer to who you're meant to be. Believe. To watch the Airbnb story from air mattresses to a $100 billion company, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, founders of Airbnb, were sleeping on air mattresses in their living room, broke and rejected by investors. Today, they run a $100 billion company. How? They refuse to quit.